Good morning. Welcome to the November 2024 meeting of the House of Delegates. Please take your seats. This is a hybrid meeting. We are joined this morning by our colleagues from across the state and around the world. Before we begin, I'd ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the New York State Bar Association's House of Delegates meeting. Before we begin, just a few quick reminders for our delegates who are participating remotely. Please be sure to check that your full name appears as it is supposed to in your profile. If called upon, all comments will be limited to 3 minutes. If you are attending the meeting virtually, please note that you will be muted during the meeting. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Use the raise hand feature to advance and second a motion to approve a report or to indicate that you wish to speak. When voting, a poll box will appear on your screen. Please identify your vote at that time. For those of you here in person, you will be asked to indicate your vote by a show of hands. If you abstain from a vote, you must send a separate email to the New York State Bar Association so she can document your abstention accordingly. Chat feature will be disabled for this meeting and for future House of Delegates meetings. Motions made from the floor during the meeting must be typed out using the Q&A feature. As previously mentioned, be sure to use the raise hand feature to advance and second a motion. If you are attending virtually and are chosen to speak, remember to turn on your camera and unmute yourself. We cannot guarantee that every person wishing to speak will have the opportunity to do so. We thank you for your patience and understanding.
Thank you. I'd like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted online and will be available to members of the association, members of the public, and the media. A reminder that materials are now posted to the House of Delegates webpage, and any supplemental materials that are submitted late have been posted there as well. If you have not already done so, please complete the attendance card at your seat. Please turn them into staff at the registration desk at the end of the meeting, as this is our procedure for taking attendance. For remote attendees, attendance is recorded via Zoom, so please ensure that your full name is displayed in Zoom so that your attendance can be properly counted. I would also like to remind our delegates who are participating via Zoom of the mechanics of the remote participation in the meeting. You just all heard that, so you don't need me to go through that again. If you are attending the meeting in person, please use the standing microphones should you wish to speak to a report. For any items which require a vote, the voice vote in the room will occur simultaneously with the launch and close of the online poll. Please note that there will be a short delay to allow the in-person and online votes to be tallied. For all delegates, both those participating remotely and those here, if selected to speak, as has been our practice, we ask that you follow these guidelines to promote an orderly discussion and debate. Delegates should identify themselves and their affiliations. Delegates should speak only once and limit their remarks to 3 minutes. If I notify you that your time has expired, please wrap up your remarks. My comments are not a reflection on your position, but rather my responsibility to ensure that all members participate fairly in the discussion. Any questions to a presenter or otherwise should be directed to me as the chair of the House. Delegates should refrain from procedural motions until substantive discussion is completed. In this regard, a delegate may rise to speak to the motion on the floor and then advise me that they intend to make a procedural motion at the appropriate time. I will recognize them again to make that motion. All presenters and delegates rising to speak will be treated with collegiality and respect by all members of the House. We will now proceed with the meeting. The first item of business is approval of the minutes of our June 8th meeting. Unless there are any corrections, amendments, or objections to the minutes of the meeting in June, we will accept them as distributed. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Oh, we have someone online that has a concern about the minutes. John Owens, Mr. Owens? Was he muted? No? Okay. Hearing no corrections, amendments, or objections, the minutes are approved. The next item of business is the report of the nominating committee. Past president and chair of the nominating committee, T. Andrew Brown, will present the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, officers, members of the House. Good morning. I come before you this morning in my capacity as chair of the nominating committee. The committee has important work to do on behalf of the association. Before I provide our report, I do want to take a moment to extend thank yous to all the members of the nominating committee for your diligence to this important task. I also want to thank all of the candidates who stepped forward and offered their services. And lastly, I want to thank our dedicated staff for support and guidance, namely David Miranda, General Counsel and past president, and Eunice Benke, the staff liaison. The nominating committee reports that it met back in September and again yesterday, November 1st, and hereby nominates the following individuals for election to offices as will be mentioned for a term commencing on June 1, 2025. President-elect Taya Grace, Secretary Tom Maroney, Treasurer Susan Harper, Vice Presidents of the 13 respective districts, 1st District, Adrian Koch, Diana Sen, 2nd District, Amy Richter, 3rd District, Jane Bellow-Burke, 4th District, Michelle Wildgrube, 5th District, the Honorable James Murphy, 6th District, Dawn Joyce Lanuette, 7th District, John Getz, 8th District, Norm Effman, 9th District, the Honorable Karen Beltran, 10th District, Justin Block, the 11th District, Frank Bruno, 12th District, Hugh Campbell, the 13th District, Sheila McGinn. Elected delegates to the House of Delegates for the 13 districts. For the first, Stephen Charles Lassard, Susan Lindenauer, and Kaylin Whittingham. For the 2nd District, Honorable Barry Kamens, Pauline Young-Ha, the Honorable Joanne Quinones. The 3rd District, Colleen Pearson, Hermes Fernandez, and Mara Drew Afzali. The 4th District, Connor Julius Real, Cynthia Feathers, and Marty Onderdonk. The 5th District, Carl Mann, John McCann, and the Honorable Jean Marie Westlake. The 6th District, Rachel Ellen Miller, Adam Spence, Alicia Christine Rohan. For the 7th District, Eileen Buchholz, Kimberly Fox DeGay, and Langston McFadden. For the 8th District, Karen Nicholson, Sophie Thiel, and Joanne McCree. For the 9th District, David Evan Marcus, John Papalardo, and Andrea Soto. For the 10th District, the Honorable John Leo, Peter Levy, and Peter Mancuso. For the 11th District, Elisa Eisner, Sharifa Milena Nasser Kalar, and Arthur Terranova. For the 12th District, Michael Daly, Paul London, and Michael Daly. There will have to be a correction there. For the 13th District, Karen Soren, Catherine Chavon, and the Honorable Ellen Hamangian. To the Executive Committee, member-at-large seats for a 2-year term commencing June 1, Nick Rangel, Adam Seiden, and Vivian Wesson for the diversity seat, and Ann LaBarbera for the young lawyer seat. Section member-at-large to the EC for a 2-year term, Ellen Makovsky. Delegates to the American Bar Association House of Delegates for the 2025-27 term, Michael Miller, Scott Carson, Sherry Levin Wallach, Domenick Napoletano, and President-elect designee Taya Grays. 2025-26 nominating committee members at large, which is designated by the bylaws. Richard Lewis, yours truly, T. Andrew Brown. Scott Carson will be the alternate. For the 2025-26 nominating committee chair or year, the chair will be Sherry Levin Wallach. And that, Madam Chair, completes my report.
Thank you, Past President Brown. Congratulations to all. Could we have a round of applause, please? Next, Susan Harper will present the report of the treasurer.
Thank you. Good morning, all. It's so good to see everybody here today. So, let's begin. Okay, today I'm going to report on our new membership model launch, our financial operations as of September 30th, 2024, section destination meetings to date, and also I'm going to provide some information just regarding some alerts by FinCEN, just concerning check fraud. So we're going to begin with the new membership model, which everybody knows is live. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to interact with it or not, but we have some good news about the new membership model. It was launched on September 16th, and I'm sure some of you have seen some of the marketing efforts. And I know I've received some feedback just from some of you just here today. And if you have any feedback for us, please continue to give it to us because we need to make tweaks along the way. So our internal marketing group led by Eric Wallaber, together with our outside consultants, the Martin Group, have been able to attract a lot of new members and returning members to our association. From a financial standpoint, in the last 2 weeks of September 2024, we were able to engage 60 new members and regain 322 members that have previously left. The chart on the screen shows the funds in from September 16th to the 30th, where we almost reached $80,000, which is a promising start of a new future for the association. The highest interest received was in the group of attorneys practicing for 7 years. The new membership model updated as of October 25th. The membership department is tracking 3 separate categories. This is important for everybody to keep in mind. There's new join, and that's anyone who we didn't have a record for in our system before. There's rejoin, and that's anyone that was a member before but dropped out and didn't participate in this past year in the 2023-2024 year. And renew, and that's anyone that was a member in 2024 and is already renewed for 2025 year. So as of October 29th, we've had 143 new joins, 542 rejoins, and 3,857 renews. On the section side, we've had 586 additional section purchases and 71 sustaining member add-ons, and that may be a little bit more because that number isn't reflected here. Okay, so on our next slide, first, before I move on from there, I just want to thank our staff. I think I saw Tony walking around here someplace. Tony, IT, up there, IT. Tony and his staff have been really working hard, as well as our membership department and our membership chair, and of course, our executive director, and just everybody. I mean, this is an enormous task to be undertaking and a major transformation year. So we're going to move now to our partnership conference. And just a few weeks ago, the New York State Bar Association's Legal Aid Committee put together a great event, a partnership conference. And this is a premier civil legal services education and networking conference, which occurs every 2 years. And this year we had over 500 attendees. So just to put that in perspective, which I mentioned to the executive committee, just with our sections, our family law section had a really hugely successful event this summer up in Boston, and they had about 300 or a little bit over 300 people attend. So 500 attendees is really fantastic. And that was 300 it's just as fantastic too. So successful events are measured by our educational component, the interest we create within the public, as well as our financial gains. We've been back to our association. This event resulted in $64,000 in profit, which I think is fantastic. I want to express my gratitude to Eunice Benke, our public interest program manager here, and as well as the staff that participated in making this a successful event. Thank you all. So we're going to move on to the operating budget now. So let's review the financial results as of the ending of September 30th, 2024. September 30th, 2024. We have brought in 17.2 million in revenue, realized expenses of 15.9 million, realizing a surplus right now of 1.3 million. Comparing the results to last September, we've increased our revenue by 2.45%. But we've also increased our expenses by 3.86%. The main contributors to that difference is our section meetings, our section destination meetings. On the next slide, we're going to move to section revenue and expense. As of September, sections have lost $193,000 as their expenses exceeded dues and section program registration and sponsorship received. Comparing the results to last year's September, we can notice expenses has significantly increased. There was $542,000 more was spent this year on 11 events than the last year in 14 in-person events. Next slide, please. Moving to destination meetings. This, I know it's a bit hard to see this slide, but you could just see that the revenue is obviously in the green and the blue is the expense. So this slide shows the destination meetings held so far this year internally within the finance department and sections. We've been meeting and asking all sections to review their meeting budgets. And I met with the section caucus yesterday, and I've shared some of this information with them as well beforehand. And adjust registration fees to cover the increasing cost of hotels and dinings. Everyone is aware of inflation. And trust me, from seeing the bills from some of the hotels, they have really increased significantly. And so we need to adjust that appropriately. So overall, there were 11 meetings so far. Sections have lost $256,000 of dues revenues taken out of the equation. There are multiple reasons why we see losses for destination meetings. And I just really want to share with everybody, we have really been looking at this closely for all the different sections. And there's a lot of different reasons. There's not just one cut through reason. At the beginning, I thought initially when I took this position, it's like, well, it's the pandemic. And I realized it's not just the pandemic. So let's go over just a few here. So some of it is late planning. Some of them is not securing enough sponsorship. Some of it's low registration. So sometimes you see fantastic sponsorship, but low registration number. And then we could get caught up in where we have to pay a penalty for a minimum hotel commitment. Last minute expenses in the initial budget. So there's great sponsorship, great registration numbers, but unfortunately, there's some last minute expense that could really impact the section events. And basing budget sometimes on 3 days of registration, but permitting people to come in 1 day on a 1-day registration pass, and also comps. There tends to be a lot of comps and registration and on-site for registration and sometimes on-site events too, which that's not a bad thing, but sometimes there's a limit on that too. So to be proactive to address these issues, we have been meeting with the various sections one-on-one and discussing potential modifications in our section's financial policy. We have been reviewing registration numbers, sponsorship, and any last minute requests. And we've been emphasizing to start planning destination meetings early to prevent any last minute changes to budgets. So we'll continue to monitor this, and work with the sections to safeguard their funds and to ensure future financial success. We know how hard everyone works, and we want to see everyone and each of our sections, succeed. The last 3 meetings held in September looked like they would produce small gains for the sections, so that was very encouraging. The last topic I wanted to cover today was on check fraud. As I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, on September 4th, 2024, FinCEN, which is the United States Department of Treasury Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, published their analysis on check fraud incidents. Their analysis included 15,417 reports, which they received from about 840 institutions. So the total suspicious activity amounted to $688 million. There are three main outcomes for when someone takes a check from the U.S. mail, and this is obviously happening often. Altering and depositing the check, using the stolen funds to create counterfeit checks, fraudulently signing and depositing checks. An interesting portion of this report shows that 5 states where the reports were made, and New York was on the top. So we know that check fraud is on the rise, but how do we prevent it? So there are things that you could do to safeguard yourself or your own company when it comes to check fraud. One thing is to use a service called Positive Pay for your business, for your law firms. It's a service provided by financial institutions where businesses provide a list of their issued checks to their institutions, and which they compare incoming checks to the list to confirm authenticity. Positive Pay can flag discrepancies such as altered or counterfeit checks for resolution. Reconcile your bank statements, monitoring your bank accounts closely can be another safeguard, and really looking at internal controls, who has access to checks, keeping checks secure, who can mail is another way. There are other things that you can do. Obviously, everything also has their potential issues too. Looking at potentially paying digitally for ACH. But I just want to let everybody know, the New York State Bar, we're employing all of the above suggested steps, and we wanted to share it in case it might help you in your business life. Just because the fact there's a lot of stuff going on out there, and we have to all be vigilant when it comes to finances these days, unfortunately. I want to also just to finalize too that recognize a very special person who she's going to be retiring this year, Chris O'Brien. I don't know where she is. There she is, Chris O'Brien, who's the senior director of finance. And Chris has been with us for many, many years. For anybody who has touched the area of finance and money has had interaction with Chris. And you're going to hear more about from her, from Domenick, as well as Michael too shortly. But I want to thank her personally for her service to this association. Chris works really, really hard. And if everybody knows that you have a question for her, she's there, she answers it, she's supportive, she's knowledgeable. And we have been very lucky to have someone like her to be a steward and to help us and support us in this association. So thank you, Chris. That concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, I walked away. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Oh, question, okay. Oh, sure. We'd be more than happy to. We'd be more than happy to. Thank you for your interest too. Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Your report is received with the thanks of the House. Next, we are honored to be joined by the Honorable Dianne Theresa Renwick, Presiding Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department. We welcome the opportunity to regularly hear from our presiding justices to get updates on the good work of our court system, and for our association to have the opportunity to work together on common goals. Judge Renwick, Justice Renwick.
Good morning. Thank you. I respond to either one. So Justice, Judge, it's okay. I don't get offended. Well, good morning, New York State Bar Association, House of Delegates. Thank you so much to President Domenick Napoletano and President-elect Kathleen Sweet for inviting me to address this esteemed body And congratulations, Taya Graves, on your nomination to become the next president-elect. And I'm going to compliment myself on knowing what color to wear this morning because I understand that purple rules the day. So good morning to everyone. Nearly every day, we hear reports on the fragility of our democracy and the need to strengthen our institutions and the population's understanding of civics and civility. I'm heartened by the work and dedication of the leaders and members of the New York State Bar Association, its many committees and sections, and the House of Delegates for promoting trust and respect in our justice system, for supporting collaborations among the public and private sectors, and for working to increase representation in the profession and on the bench to reflect the great diversity of our communities. Collectively, all of these efforts, multiplied by the thoughtful work of the committee and sections of this venerable association, do indeed strengthen our institutions and respect for the rule of law and promote equal justice for all. The lawyers and judges who comprise the 55,000 members of the New York State Bar Association, and particularly all of you, I don't know if you're having trouble hearing me. I see some necks strained, sorry. Particularly all of you, the members of the House of Delegates, are leaders in our profession. You are mentors and role models to students, newly admitted practitioners, and your peers. You're innovators who think outside the box to creatively fashion new approaches to resolve difficult matters. You're educators who offer important historical context and instruction on our Constitution and individual liberties. And you're advocates who zealously work to preserve our country's values. Integral to this work is the importance of creating opportunities to diversify the profession, including in law school recruitment and admissions, and in practice through networking, bar association programs, and continuing legal education courses. The accomplishments of this bar are a credit to the robust leadership and delegates who go above and beyond to uplift our communities, state, and nation to advance the cause of justice and uphold the rule of law. To understand the impact of the New York State Bar Association's work, your work, and expand access to justice and to significantly elevate the rule of law and our democratic values, one need not look further than the range of topics from cutting-edge issues to black-letter law that are the subject of your reports, which I believe you will be reviewing today. For example, treatment of transgender youth and sports, Medicaid aid, medical aid and dying, artificial intelligence, and the New York State Constitution, to name just a few. It's due to the personal and professional commitment of each of you, judges, legal services lawyers, government lawyers, academics, and private practitioners, from defense counsel to corporate in-house lawyers, who are members of this, one of the most respected state bars in our country. I commend you for the meaningful work you do as leaders and as New York lawyers. Thank you. We all know this work is ever more urgent. As your fellow delegate, David Lewis Cohen, remarked in the recent Profiles in Leadership from the Committee on Leadership Development, quote, "I believe the greatest challenge to the legal profession in the next 5 years is the growing disrespect for the court system. The attacks on our courts are not only a challenge, but are a great danger to our profession and the rule of law. If the public loses faith in the impartiality of the courts, then it is a slippery slope, leading to the lack of voluntary compliance with court decisions. As a profession, we must support and actively participate in any and all efforts to educate our citizens as to the importance of respect for our courts and the rule of law. Past President Lewis's convening of a forum on civics education highlighted the need to have civics education back in the classroom. Unless all citizens believe that the decisions of our courts, from the Supreme Court of the United States to their local town justices, are impartial and based on the law and must be complied with, our democracy is in danger. End quote. Mr. Cohen's concerns resonate with my own. The independence of the judiciary and adherence to the rule of law are foundational to our tripartite democracy and cannot be taken for granted. United States Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter observed in 1947, in the case of United States against United Mine Workers, and forgive, well, given the time, the gender is off, but you'll hear it the way it's meant to be heard, I'm sure. There can be no free society without law administered through an independent judiciary. If one man can be allowed to determine for himself what is law, every man can. That means first chaos, then tyranny. We judges speak through our written opinions, which must be fair and grounded in the law. We also endeavor to educate and promote understanding of the role of the courts and cultivate an environment of civility and respect for the rule of law, as Justice Frankfurter did. The court system provides training and professional development for our judges and outreach to members of the bar and law students through educational initiatives and programming that assess, address, and help us stay abreast of new trends and developments, such as the impacts and potential uses or abuses of generative AI. In myriad ways, we strive to educate the public on the importance of an independent judiciary, one of the three co-equal branches of government, and about their civic responsibilities, including jury service when summoned. Our commissioners of jurors, particularly in the Bronx, where there is lower turnout, juror turnout, than most counties, puts extraordinary time and effort into educating members of the Bronx community about the importance of their jury service in an effort to increase their understanding and confidence and participation in our justice system. Throughout the state, our court staff tries to educate our communities in many of the same ways. The integrity of our justice system is challenged when individuals lack knowledge of and access to justice. At the annual Chief Judge's hearings on civil legal services held on September 16th, just across the square at the Court of Appeals, the overwhelming need for pro bono lawyers to represent indigent clients in civil cases was once again starkly apparent. There is such great need for the knowledge and skills of lawyers like each of you, and for each of you to encourage other lawyers to do this work. By way of illustration, listen to this startling statistic from the most recent Poverty Tracker report issued by the Robin Hood Foundation in coordination with Columbia University. 56% of New Yorkers live below the federal poverty line, and nearly half of these impoverished individuals, children, and families live in New York City, with the highest percentage in the Bronx, one of the two boroughs that comprise the first department. Such wealth in New York County, right beside a sister borough with so much poverty. Every day, the most vulnerable Bronx citizens, Bronx residents, children and their mothers who are victims of domestic violence, seniors living in poverty who are often forced to choose between medication and food, families facing eviction, disabled veterans in need of benefits and special accommodations, to name just a few, confront serious legal challenges and often don't know where to turn, particularly if they have a court summons. I've told you of the nearly half that live in the Bronx, but across this upstate region in the third and fourth departments, there's more than half of these impoverished citizens who live in the same conditions and require the same need for expert lawyers and pro bono assistance. As lawyers, we are uniquely positioned to provide pro bono representation to those in need, and we must do our best to do so. It's also our professional responsibility to educate our students, our future leaders, about the rule of law and their civic duties. Experiential opportunities for students at all educational levels instills a greater understanding of the role of lawyers and judges and cultivates greater respect of our legal system. Perhaps because I have 3 children whose classes I started speaking to about the law when each was just 4 years old, I believe very deeply in the importance of civic education. That's why it was so important to me that the first department launched our Justice Forward initiative, an educational program to engage middle and high school students in civic pursuits. In conjunction with Law Day 2024, we presented a day-long program that included interesting panel discussions on the rule of law and the various careers necessary to ensure that our system works. Our judges, lawyers, court clerks, court officers, court reporters, court interpreters, and other staff from throughout the court system described the range of career paths in our justice system in the hope of inspiring these young middle school and high school students. We've all experienced how enlightening it is when you visualize your future self and believe it is possible, if we remember what our future selves were, and believe it is possible that one day you could, in fact, attend law school or become an administrator or court officer. We tried to create that for the students based on their enthusiastic participation of actually the students and their educators. It looks like we achieved our desired result, and I'm very excited to make this an annual Law Day event in the first department. As former President Barack Obama explained in a recent speech, our democracy is not just a bunch of laws and some book somewhere. It's the values we live by and the way we treat each other, including those who don't look like us or pray like us or see the world exactly like we do. It's a sense of mutual respect. I couldn't agree more. I truly believe that when students see the role they can play and how essential they are to the development of society and the law, even before they're old enough to vote or serve on a jury, they'll be more dialed in and feel more empowered to exercise their rights and consequently help to strengthen our democracy. I applaud all of you for your leadership, dedication, and commitment to the profession. As you work on reports for your important committees, many of which I didn't mention, commercial law and so many other areas, I encourage you to contact me with any issues that concern the first department so that we can be sure to get it right and be part of the solution early on. As we all know, we are stronger when we work together, when we collaborate and support one another, and treat one another with respect and dignity. And I very much look forward to continuing to work with you to ensure access to justice for all New Yorkers and to strengthen and advance our legal system and our independent judiciary. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you today, and I wish you a productive meeting.
Thank you so much, Justice Renwick. We appreciate your joining us today. Next up is the report of the Finance Committee with respect to the 2025 association budget. Pursuant to the bylaws, the House is required to approve each annual budget. The report will be presented by Michael McNamara, Chair of the Finance Committee.
So good morning, everybody. So I know you're thinking more finances, not more finances. I promise I will not repeat what Susan has already gone through. I'm here today to present the 2025 budget and report on the financial condition of the association. So as you can see on the screen, in terms of highlights, the first two items were the most striking about 2024. It was a very, very expensive year for this association. It was the year we undertook the much discussed, long-awaited renovation of this building, and we simultaneously launched a new membership model. So by the time we close the books on this year, we will have spent approximately $6.5 million on capital expenses, including upwards of $5.1 million on building repairs and fees, $400,000 to support the marketing and launch of the new membership model, and about $1 million for necessary technology upgrade. The good news, however, is that we expected and had planned for most of those expenses. We've had the benefit of strong financial markets, and we remain in a very strong financial position. So the 2025 budget you're being asked to approve today, the first involving our new model, projects a surplus of $68,586. The building renovation project, which has been the subject of so much attention and discussion over the years, is basically done and paid for, and it went off as planned. We didn't run into any scary or expensive surprises. We didn't have to borrow any money. The work was done on time and on budget. A really great result for this association, which owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to a lot of people, none more than our David Miranda, who has devoted untold hours to issues involving this building over the past 4.5 years, and who was principally involved in shepherding and supervising the project the past year. I'm happy to say David not only brought the project in on time and on budget, we brought it in line with the budget that was approved in June 2021 by this body when we first decided that we were going to take back the building. So great job, David. In terms of our overall finances, we remain in a very strong financial position. Our long-term investment funds are at historically high levels as of the end of the third quarter. And as I'll talk about in a little more detail in a few minutes, our total financial assets, all of it, everything that we have, even after accounting for all the expenses this year, are higher than in June 2021 when we started out on this journey. So we're very happy about that. So let's talk briefly about the 2025 budget. And I'll go quickly through this because I know most of you have some understanding of the budget process. But months of effort go into it. It starts in June at the beginning of the bar year. Starts with Chris O'Brien and Mira Rizvanovich and the finance team, who meet and review in detail with every department and committee and section head to develop a preliminary budget, which is then reviewed by senior staff, then goes to the finance committee. And in September, we met with all the key department heads to discuss 2025. You won't be surprised to hear that this year we talked a lot about the new membership model. That was the principal subject. The marketing effort around the launch, the necessary technology expenses, the revenue projections for year one. And that culminated in a 138-page draft budget, which we've spared you. We've just given you a summary of some of the information this morning. But the finance committee reviews that really line by line, page by page in a marathon session, which took place in this building a couple of weeks ago. My thanks as always to the staff involved in the process, especially Chris and Amira. As you heard from Susan already, and I think you're going to hear a little more from Domenick this morning, we have some big changes afoot in the finance department. Chris O'Brien, our long-term senior director of finance, will be retiring at year end, and Amira Rizvanovich has assumed the role of chief of finance. As an organization, we're very fortunate to have somebody with Amira's talent and experience ready to take on this important role. And I'm very confident that the transition will continue to be seamless. And Amira and her team, including our new hire, Greg Matisse, I'm not sure if Greg's in the room, will remain a great resource to this association. Susan's already started the thank yous with Chris. I don't see her at this point, but I want to echo what Susan said. I won't repeat it, but I do want to add my thanks for the help that she gave me as chair of the finance committee. When then President Andrew Brown asked me to take on the role as chair in August 2021, I was a newbie on the finance committee. I had literally just been appointed to the committee. I had never been through a budget cycle, and I had a very limited understanding of NYSBA's operations and policies and investments. And especially that first year, Chris was really invaluable, and I relied heavily on her. And she was and remains unbelievably helpful in teaching me about the association's finances and answering my many, many, many questions. Chris has agreed to continue to work with us on a consulting basis going forward, which I am very grateful for. But this is her last meeting as Senior Director of Finance, so please join me in thanking her. I know you've done this, but she deserves it for her many years of service and wishing her well in all of her future pursuits. I don't see her. She said I really should just say thank you. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. I also want to thank and acknowledge the members of the Finance Committee for all of their work. President Napoletano, President-elect Sweet, Treasurer Susan Harper, immediate past President Dick Lewis, he's in the back, Tara Pleat, Jackie Drohan, Drew Jaglam's up front, the Honorable Cheryl Chambers, and Bob Schofield. This group is really a pleasure to work with. They work hard, they ask good questions, they understand the organization, the different parts of the organization, and they give tremendous input and as part of the budget process and all of the work that we do on the finances. And they work very well together, which is really a pleasure for me. Okay, for the proposed 2025 budget, as you can see on slide 4, we're projecting revenue of $21,244,412 against expenses of $21,175,826. So we have a surplus. On the income side, membership dues is the all-important number for 2025. You've heard already from Susan this morning about the new membership model. You're going to be hearing a lot more about it. You've obviously heard a lot about it over the last year. You're going to be hearing more about it from Michelle this morning. Because the model bundles membership and most of CLE, section memberships, and more, that really becomes the key number for us going forward. A year ago, under the old model, we projected membership revenues of a little over 8.8 million. And as you can see, we expect to end the year a little over 8.6. Slide 6 shows the story of membership dues as of 9/30 for this year and going back to 2020. And as you can see, the slight decline we expect this year is in line with the trend that this association has experienced for the past several years, and the single biggest reason that we embarked on the new membership model. For 2025, we're projecting membership revenues of $11,900,000. If you look at the materials you were given, you'll see the revenue number is that the CLE revenue number is much less than in prior years, as is the revenue number for reference materials. That's because it's all bundled. You'll also see that what we expect to pay the sections as royalties shows up as income for the sections in your materials. With the launch of the new model, there are more uncertainties with respect to membership than in past years. I can tell you from a process standpoint, we spent quite a bit of time talking about this, and a lot of time was spent by individuals in membership, our executive director, in finance, thinking about and talking about the assumptions and what the right number would be. And then the finance committee spent a lot of time in September and October talking about those assumptions. The belief of everyone directly involved in coming up with the $11.9 million number is that the projection is conservative. Fingers crossed. It's a new model. I think we'll know a lot more next year. But this is, as I say, a conservative estimate of where we should be in 2025. Turning to our investments, the last 12 months have witnessed very strong market performance, and our investment portfolio reflects that. You see up on the screen a description of some of our specific investments. Many of you know this. We have long-term reserve funds. We have a Cromwell fund and a general fund. The description up here is of the long-term reserve fund and the Cromwell fund. The long-term fund was set up for funds that we didn't need for current operations and to provide a reserve against unusual, unexplained, extraordinary obligations. We certainly had those in 2024. So the long-term reserve fund was tapped to pay the $400,000 and pay $400,000 of the outside marketing expenses to the Martin Group, and $1 million in technology upgrades. The Cromwell Fund is also a long-term permanent fund. They are invested as is appropriate for long-term funds and diversified portfolios of equities and fixed income. And they are managed by teams from UBS and B of A. As slide 8 shows, here's some good news. The long-term reserve fund balance was $36,576,000 as of the end of the third quarter. That is an all-time high for the long-term reserve funds, and that's despite the $1.4 million withdrawal to deal with some of the extraordinary expenses of this year. So you'll see it's significantly higher than year-end 2021, which was our previous high watermark. It's $10 million higher than year-end 2019 when the COVID journey began, and way, way higher, almost $26 million higher than back in 2008 at the time of the Great Recession. As I explained to the executive committee yesterday, some of you have seen this 2008 figure. I started using it 2 years ago when we were in the throes of an economic hurricane, and people were worried. They're worried about whether we should be going to cash, whether we should be rethinking our investments. And it shows the last time we went through an economic hurricane in 2008, the foresight and the wisdom of those who were working on the finance committee at the time in staying invested. Because of course we would be a lot poorer today and a lot less able to support our mission if we had gone to cash. Likewise, slide 9 shows a similar story for the Cromwell Fund. Okay. We also have a general fund. It includes accumulated funds from operations over time. It's invested in primarily corporate bonds that are managed by JP Morgan Chase. In 2021, we had record surpluses, some of you will recall. We added substantially to the general fund, anticipating that some of that money would be used for the building when we got around to the repair. And in 2024, we expect to use up to $1.4 million, maybe a little less, for that purpose. My favorite slide, I think, is number 10. It compares our assets at the time the House approved the plan to take back the building with the end of Q3 2024. As you can see, we're up about $1.8 million over that period of time. And so that includes not just the money we spent on the building, it also includes the $1.4 million that we expended this year. So what that tells us is that we were able to pay for all of that, the entire $6.5 million from the operating surplus in 2021 and the increases in our investment portfolio in the past 3 years. And as some of you will recall, there were concerns about the cost of renovating the building and whether we could afford to and what impact that would have on our finances. And of course, when we started out, and then in 2022, when financial markets plummeted, there was even more concern. So this is a pretty great outcome for the association. Couple of closing thoughts. An inflection point is defined as a time of significant change in the situation, a turning point. And I think as we close out 2024, from an operational and financial standpoint, NYSBA's at an inflection point. This is the 4th time I've had the privilege of addressing this group as chair of the Finance Committee. During the time covered by those reports, the association has faced and successfully navigated a number of significant challenges. We had COVID, of course. We had the on-again, off-again reemergence from COVID, from fully locked down to hybrid and in-person meetings. We had the economic hurricane of 2022, which caused a lot of concern for a lot of people. And in addition to all that, for the entire time, we had the building issues hanging over us. But at this point, we're turning the page on all of that and really focusing as we go forward on the new membership model and devoting ourselves to further building the membership of the association. None of that is to dismiss the challenges of the future. We will continue to have building expenses. We will continue for sure to have technology expenses. And no one knows what the next black swan will be, other than there'll probably be one. But it is good to be able to close out a number of those challenges as an association and start to move forward. None of this would have been achieved without the efforts of a lot of people. I've already mentioned David, the finance team. There are many others. I'm going to leave some out by doing this, but there are a couple of shout outs that I want to give. First, to Pat Stockley, who bravely assumed the leadership of the marketing membership department in 2024 while the new model was already underway. Gerard McAvee, who helped spearhead the new membership model and so many important events over the past several years. Kathy Sahusky, who was truly our CLE MVP during COVID and continues to do so many things so well for the association. And our tireless, courageous, and innovative executive director, Pam McDevitt, who saw the need for a virtual bar center before COVID hit, and who was the driving force behind the new membership model. So please join me in thanking them for everything they do and have done for the association. So, Madam Chair, as a member of this House of Delegates, I hereby move the adoption of the 2025 budget.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Questions? I would like to, is there any,
Is it stunned silence? Is that weird?
while we're determining what's happening online, I just want to thank personally Michael McNamara. He approaches every issue of the committee with wisdom, curiosity, patience, and good judgment. So thank you very much for that. So we will now take a vote. All those in favor of approving the report and the budget, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Online? 100%, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next agenda item, it will be presented by Robert T. Schofield IV. He will present the report and recommendations of the Committee on Bylaws. This matter is a little different. There are 249 members of the House of Delegates. In order to subscribe to the bylaws amendments, a majority, 125 members who are attending must subscribe. For those members who are attending virtually, we will email to you a subscription form that we will ask you to sign and return. Please note, we are not voting on the bylaws amendments today. Agreeing to the subscription is for the purpose of placing the amendments on the agenda for voting at the association's annual meeting in January.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? I'm here to titillate you with the most interesting report of the day, as I often have the opportunity to present. And joking aside, sometimes the material we present is additive, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's good practice, but it's rarely as important as the report that we're presenting today, because today culminates a very, very long effort of study here by the association and its members of strategic planning and governance issues. That process began many, many years ago and culminates in the report that we're presenting today. So this report proposes amendments to the bylaws in two parts. First, as outlined in part one, to implement the recommendations of the Strategic Planning Committee that the House adopted last June, and to enhance compliance with New York's revised not-for-profit corporation law, we're presenting a number of amendments to bring us into compliance and better practice with respect to the running of the organization. The second part is to correct certain minor non-substantive inconsistencies that we found as we were doing that review. So taking us on a little history lesson, the not-for-profit corporation law was amended in 2014 by a statute that everyone knows as the Revitalization Act. And there were further amendments pursuant to that process happening almost annually until 2022. Together, those amendments modernized the NPCL relating to membership and officers to align with current practices, streamline procedures, and eliminate unnecessary regulatory burdens. We fell a little bit behind as those statutes were changing. We hadn't looked at our bylaws with respect to accept some of the most technical aspects of those changes, like conflicts of interest, et cetera. And frankly, our bylaws needed some work in that regard. In April 2024, the House approved the report and recommendations of the Strategic Planning Committee, And among those recommendations that were approved were to amend the association bylaws to enhance their compliance with the not-for-profit corporation law. So here we are. Many of the changes to the NPCL relate to governance by a board of the organization. And under our current bylaws, the ones that we sit here operating under today, our board is you, 260 members of the House of Delegates. And yet I would suggest that probably very, very few of you recall any time that we've sat in the room talking about day-to-day operations of the association, making decisions about staff, making decisions about, other than approving a budget, how much money we're spending or what we're spending it on. The House is just not acting as the board, and it hasn't acted as the board in a long time. There have been other committees that have filling that role and acting as excellent surrogates and excellent stewards, as we can see today by the financial health of the association, but it has not been this body. We looked at that and we said, you know, if there needs to be a board and if we need to come in compliance with the NPCL, what is the best organization that we have now without completely upturning the structure of the organization? And the obvious answer was the executive committee. There were very many practical considerations. One was the concern that the size of this body made it impractical to really function as a board dealing with the day-to-day operational issues that a board needs to deal with. Another was the difficulty of members of the House acting as board members without really understanding that they were fiduciaries in that role and that they were functioning as directors of the organization. A third was that there was a sense that there could be greater efficiency and more in assigning the duties to a more streamlined executive committee. And then there was a general sense that the duties of the board were already being done and conducted outside of this body. And so although this would be a change, it would not be a change that many people would feel in the operation of the association. I will tell you another thing that weighed heavily on both the Strategic Planning Committee and the Bylaws Committee was the sense that as the association is made up of lawyers and is the voice of lawyers and attorneys throughout the state, it didn't feel good that we were out of compliance with an important state law. And so we felt it was very important that as we looked at this, not only did we come into compliance, that we really tried to adopt best practices wherever we could. That said, our effort was surgical. We did not go through and just start from scratch. We did not upend the structure of the association. We really did a very careful job of going through the bylaws and only changing those sections that really needed to be changed to adopt this new model. And so you'll see that there's a lot of changes that relate to terminology, calling committees of the association and committees of the board, rather than special committees, standing committees, all the different terms that we had previously used throughout the bylaws. Adopting a board structure in the executive committee, making it very clear what those powers of the executive committee acting as the board would be, things of that nature. So ultimately, this committee is recommending the House retain its important functions, such as policy setting, which nobody does better than the House, and such things that are truly important to the membership, such as setting of dues and assessments and things of that nature. Those are things that have always rested in the House. There was no need to change them, and so we've left them here in the body that's closest to the membership. Let's move forward now, and we'll start talking about the specific changes that have been made. All of our report, and indeed before you today is an amended report, and I'll explain to you what the amendments were as we get to that section, but the report is laid out by article. And so even though I'm not going to go point by point through each of the amendments that we're suggesting, I will summarize by article what changes are there. And if anybody has any questions or sees something that they'd like us to address, you know, we can certainly talk about that in discussion. So if we can move forward to the slide that says Article 4 officers, we'll get started. Before I get to that, I will just comment on the reason that there is an amended report. So after we issued our initial report, it was noticed by leadership and by the Finance Committee that the Finance Committee had been, because of its current structure, turned into a committee of the association. It's a perfectly workable model, and it could have been fine, except that Right now, the Finance Committee has delegated authority to essentially operate and make decisions with respect to the financial decisions of the association, the management of its investments, et cetera. Had we let that become a committee of the association, it would no longer be allowed to have that delegated power from the board because under the not-for-profit corporation law, only a committee of the board can have the delegated powers of the board. The problem with the Finance Committee as it's currently constituted is that it has members who are both members of the Executive Committee and non-executive committee members among it. We didn't want to change that structure, but it was important that it continue to be able to function in the manner that it's currently functioning now. It's very effectively managing the finances of the organization. And so we relooked at it and determined that we could make it a committee of the board and wanted to do that by only having the persons who also concurrently sit on the executive committee have voting power. There are currently 3 members of the Finance Committee who are not executive committee members. The balance are members of the executive committee. This is written in a way that you'll see those 3 persons would not have the power to vote. But again, that is critical to allowing the Finance Committee to continue to be a committee of the board. I will tell you as a practical matter, much of the business of the Finance Committee is conducted by consensus and discussion. And so there aren't too many circumstances where that will come to a head in a very meaningful way, but it is critical for us to come into compliance to have the Finance Committee serve as a committee of the board. That is the substance of the amendments. It's summarized in the additional introductory material that are in the amended report, but that is really the only change from the initial draft to the amended draft. So, Article 4, officers. In this article, the reference to standing committees and special committees is resolved because it's outdated and inconsistent. The committee is recommending throughout the bylaws that such references are consistently revised to be reflected merely as committees. In addition, certain references to the House of Delegates are changed to the Executive Committee, consistent with the change to having the Executive Committee function as the board. Next slide. In the article dealing with the House of Delegates, in accordance with the not-for-profit corporation law, the board must have the duty, power, and authority to control and manage the business and affairs of the association. To better comply with those requirements in the NPCL, the committee is recommending that traditional board responsibilities be transferred to the Executive Committee as discussed. The committee recommends that the House's traditional non-board related functions, such as setting overall policy, remaining vested in the House of Delegates, and that the approval of amendments to the bylaws always remains with the members. Next article, Article 6. Again, in accordance with the not-for-profit corporation law, committees are now classified as committees of the board or committees of the association. Committees of the board have board delegated authority and therefore must be comprised solely of directors appointed by the governing board. Committees of the corporation do not have board delegated authority and therefore serve in an advisory capacity and can have non-board members among their membership. They are established as provided by the bylaws, and non-directors can, as I mentioned, serve on those committees. The committee also updated the bylaws to clarify and correct the list of actions that cannot be taken by any committee by removing references to standing and special committees, terms that are no longer used in the NPCL. Because it is not necessary for committees of the association to be listed in the bylaws, we're recommending removing the Appendix A so that changes to that appendix don't require a bylaw amendment. I will note yesterday at the Executive Committee meeting, one of the astute members noticed in Article 6, Section 1A4, that there was language that was a little bit confusing. And if you're on the report, page 6, you can see this language. Among the duties that the Executive Committee cannot delegate to any other committee is approval of changes or amendments to the bylaws that are going to go directly to the membership. So in other words, only the Executive Committee can approve changes going through the amendment process. That's consistent with the NPCL. And the language we initially chose there was a little confusing because it said recommending approval of any amendment or repeal of the bylaws or adoption of the new bylaws to the members. It was suggested, and we agreed yesterday, that a better formulation of that section, number 4, is the approval of any amendment or repeal of the bylaws or the adoption of the bylaws for submission to the members. Moving on to Article 7, the Executive Committee. In accordance with the NPCL, the board must have the duty, power, and authority to control and manage the business and affairs of the association. To better comply with the requirements of the not-for-profit corporation law, these responsibilities are transferred to the Executive Committee. Again, it is intended that non-board related functions remain vested in the House. The position of chair of the Finance Committee is added to the Executive Committee to ensure that the Executive Committee and Finance Committee remain functionally linked, and to ensure that the Finance Committee, which is now being made a committee of the board, is led by a person who is themselves a member of that board. The changes to Article 8 of the Nominating Committee are really very, very nominal. Moving on to Article 9, there are changes to finance, audit, and compensation. The audit and compensation committees are required by the NPCL to report to the board because they are committees of the corporation, and then these provisions are revised to reflect this requirement. As we've discussed, the Finance Committee currently serves a crucial role in managing the financial affairs of the association, and there was no reason to alter this as it's functioning effectively and efficiently. It is, however, as we've discussed, currently constituted as a committee of the association, and we're recommending changing it to a committee of the board for the reasons that have been talked about. There are no changes being suggested to alter the membership of the Finance Committee, which will continue to be selected in the current manner, i.e. appointed by the President, approved by the EC and the House. However, because the committees of the board only have the voting members who are members of the board, we have added that provision that allows the non-EC members of the Finance Committee to remain, but not have an official vote when matters are determined by the committee on a vote basis. Finally, the initial language setting forth the manner in which appointments of members on the Finance Committee will be staggered is no longer necessary, but the staggering of appointments will continue. The duties and responsibilities of the Audit Committee are not required by the not-for-profit corporation law to be attached as appendix. And again, that has been removed so that it can be changed as needed without bylaws amendments. Finally, the last two sections, and we'll move to Article 12, meetings of the association and remote meetings. The association has, throughout the course of the last several years, done many of its meetings, including meetings of this body, electronically or in a hybrid fashion. There have been changes to the not-for-profit corporation law over the last several years that have incrementally allowed more and more of that activity. And indeed, there was a temporary law allowing meetings of memberships to occur electronically. That has now been made permanent. And so we've done one more pass through Article 12 and Article 13 to bring those sections into consistency with the not-for-profit corporation law and have them be governing of all meetings of the association, whether they be meetings of committees, meetings of the Executive Committee, meetings of this House, or meetings of the membership. Last but not least, we come to part 2. And there were two issues that were distinct and not necessarily driven by the not-for-profit corporation law, but that we discovered as we were going through the process. First, it was discovered that there was a hole in Article 3, Section 1D, as it relates to how law students, who as law student members may, upon admission, transition their membership into either active or associate membership. The distinction between those two membership classes is drawn based on whether or not the person is admitted in New York and therefore becomes an active member, or admitted to some other state and therefore can only become an associate member. There was lack of clarity in that distinction, and so there's proposed language changes to make it clear that there are two paths there, but only New York admittees can become active members. Second, in Article 4, officers, Section 1 and 2, there was some inconsistency in whether the president or president-elect had the power to vote when serving as an ex officio committee member. There are places in the bylaw where that's very, very clear, but there are other places where it wasn't as clear. And so the committee took it upon itself to essentially say that if the person serving in one of those officers was already a member of the committee or was given specific power to vote on that committee by virtue of their office, they could vote. Otherwise, they would be non-voting members of those committees. And that's clarifying language that was added to Article 4. So in conclusion, the proposed amendments that we're making are very, very substantively intended to bring us into compliance with the not-for-profit corporation law. They are consistent with the work that the House did in June, that the Strategic Planning Committee did in the years leading up to that action in June. We commend them to you for subscription. I'm happy to answer any questions that I have. Before I step aside for that discussion, I do want to thank a couple of people who had a very substantial role in this. Our counsel, David Miranda, and my co-chair, Anita Pelletier, who herself practices in this area, spent a lot of time getting the committee up to speed with us on these amendments, making sure that the amendments were actually vetted and conform to the not-for-profit corporation law. And the work that we have before us today really couldn't have been done with without the help of the two of them. And then again, I also thank the rest of the Bylaws Committee who are listed in the report. It is not a job that everyone wants to do, but these folks approach it with seriousness and frankly humor at times, and we try very, very hard to get this stuff right. So I want to thank all of the committee members for that. Before you is this blue form. This is the official subscription form that we need you to consider today. By signing this, you again, as the chair noted, are not voting on the bylaws, but you are simply moving them forward so that they can be voted on by the membership at the January annual meeting.
Past President Gerstmann.
Thank you. And first, my thanks to the committee. I know this was a very difficult task. I'd like to make one comment, not meant in any way to insult the committee, but clearly you were charged with trying to get our bylaws in compliance with the not-for-profit law. But to the extent that the committee made changes in governance of this association, I think that should not have properly been before the Bylaws Committee. And I think that those should have been addressed separately to this body and not to put this on simply a bylaw change without what will, I think, be the kind of discussion that's necessary. And so at an appropriate time, I would like to make a motion to remove certain provisions from the subscription. My biggest problem are changes to Article 9, which you saw as a problem and ended up changing back and forth. And that has to do with the Finance Committee. And the Finance Committee, I think those of us that have served on it, those of us that have served as treasurer and as president of this association know the importance of the Finance Committee and know the importance of having members on that Finance Committee that may not necessarily be members of the Executive Committee. I found it was incredibly helpful to have active section leaders on the Finance Committee. So much of what the Finance Committee does influences and impacts our sections. And I thought that was incredibly important. And to make them non-voting members, I think is not appropriate for them. And I think something has to be worked out, perhaps by going back to making it a committee of the association and simply having the Executive Committee, if necessary from time to time, ratify the actions of the Finance Committee. But I think that is an incredibly important function. With respect to making the chair of the Finance Committee a member of the Executive Committee, while I don't have a problem with elevating that person who may not already be a member of the Executive Committee, sometimes they are. But again, this changes the number of members of the Executive Committee, and that's a governance issue, and I'm not sure that that's appropriately treated in the bylaws. And then I have a general remark about removing some of the powers from this House of Delegates and giving it to the Executive Committee, and recognizing that many of them are day-to-day functions. I was happy that you left dues and setting of dues within the confines of the House. I think that budget needs to also stay in the House, even though it may just be rubber stamped. I think it's incredibly important that this House be educated on it, and to the extent there may be issues that have that addressed. And finally, I would like to point out that this House is so much more representative of our membership than the Executive Committee. I recall a policy issue where the Executive Committee voted a certain way overwhelmingly, and the House went absolutely the other way because of that this body is more representative. And I would like to be assured that by making the Executive Committee the governing body, it never has the power to ever overrule the House of Delegates on any issue of policy. Thank you.
Would you care to respond?
There was so much there, and of course, former President Grossman has tremendous respect, including mine. I will tell you that many of those issues were worked over at length by the Strategic Planning Committee. We were given a lot of opportunities to consider other governance models, and frankly, they were going to be either extraordinarily disruptive to what we have now, or frankly, not materially different from what we have now. And so we were trying to weave a path through to bring us into compliance, which I think is of utmost importance, and also not change things fundamentally. I think although there are legal changes in the bylaws, there are not a lot of practical changes in the bylaws, and how things will function will continue to feel an awful lot like they feel today. The Executive Committee will be empowered to deal with the governance of the association. That is a change, but it's the change that unless we're going to radically change how the House has been functioning for as long as I've been involved, which is not as long as many of you, but it's approaching 20 years at this point, it won't be workable. So the changes that we made have been surgical. We did not make changes that we thought we didn't have to make. I appreciate the thought about the Finance Committee because I did wrestle with that with the committee and with leadership in the Finance Committee itself. But if we leave the Finance Committee as a committee of the association, it will no longer have authority. It will have the ability to recommend. And I don't think that's how it works now, and I don't think it's how the association really needs it to work as we go forward. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to have the Finance Committee be subject to the Executive Committee reviewing everything it does. I think that adds a layer of process and frankly, potential dispute that isn't helpful. And so we have structured this way. I understand those issues. They are many of the issues that we looked at. I will say one thing, the budget is going to be approved by the House where you see the authority of the Finance Committee. One of the specific things that it says is that it prepares annually for submission to the Executive Committee for approval and subsequent presentation to the House, the budget. So it is taken care of by the amendments that are here.
Yes, sir. Please identify yourself for the
Good morning.
benefit.
Sandy Stranger, delegate from the Nassau County Bar Association, 10th Judicial District. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee for what you've done. I mean, this is a lot of hard work and a lot of thought, but I echo what was said by the prior speaker. And I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Could the governance or the overall amendments been done by simply the delegation by this House of those duties to the Executive Committee, which is what has been done before. And therefore, the non-for-profit law would have been we would be in compliance with the non-for-profit law, but we could delegate those same authorities. And this House would not lose the oversight control that it's had for decades.
I think the concept that you're throwing forward is a concept that we could have explored, but I think for the practical considerations that we laid out at the beginning of the report, we didn't think it would really work. And we thought, frankly, it's that scenario where the House is truly the board. that we've been out of compliance with for a very long time. And so that's the reason that we took the approach that we did. Incidentally, you know, I will speak to this. This is a committee that has a lot of expertise, not just with the association on it, but also a lot of expertise with these legal issues. We have several people on the committee who are practicing in this area of law and who spend their days dealing with not-for-profit corporation compliance. The suggestion that the bylaws committee isn't equipped to deal with governance issues, I think, is a little bit misplaced because we're asked to do it all the time. Oftentimes, there's an idea that is put forth from some other wing of the association, be it a membership committee, being at strategic planning's task force, et cetera, and we're asked to fill in the blanks. Here, we thought we filled in the blanks in accordance with the directions that we were given by strategic planning. And we wouldn't have gone beyond where we went if we didn't feel that was the path we had to be on.
I think just, and maybe it's not a question of you not being equipped. We all believe you are equipped and you've done a wonderful job. I think it's a question of policy and how this bar association is to be governed. And that's a greater issue than having it merely within a committee and submitting changes for, you know, on not necessarily short notice. I mean, this was posted, but really it's something that needs more consideration. It was not covered in the strategic plan. I think that was said yesterday that specifically at the nominating committee, we discussed the issue and it was not raised. Was it not?
Excuse me.
What was said.
Excuse me. Your time has expired. You've spoken twice now. Would you please wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment.
Was there someone else that had something to contribute? Uh-oh, I've opened the door. Here he comes.
No, very quickly, the process we are now going through is the process of subscription. We're not amending the bylaws. We're teeing up proposed amendments for the body at large at the annual meeting to vote upon. Under our present structure, only the House can perform that function. Does that remain a function exclusive to the House under your proposals?
Yeah, only
Thank
the
you.
House has the ability to subscribe bylaws amendments for submission to the members, and that has not changed. And you're absolutely right. Today is to tee this up for action by the members in January. So we do have several months that we can wrestle with some of these issues and provide better answers to people if necessary.
Yes, Mr. Jaglom.
Drew Jaglom. I am a member of the Finance Committee and a member of the Executive Committee, and I've chaired the Sections Caucus and the International Section and Business Law Section. So I greatly appreciate Past President Gerstmann's comments regarding the importance of section representation on the Finance Committee. I can't remember the last time we had a close vote on the Finance Committee. We listen to everybody, we hear everybody, and we generally reach a consensus, even if we don't start out agreeing. I serve on another board where I'm a non-voting member. I've never felt diminished by that because, again, that board also operates by consensus. I think compliance with the law is an important value. I think the operation of the Finance Committee, the way it has worked and worked well, is an important value. And I think that the Bylaws Committee has struck the right balance here, and we should subscribe it as presented and approve it in January as presented.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Koch.
Hi, good morning. Adrienne Koch, President of the New York County Lawyers Association. This is truly just a question. It's intended for informational purposes and not meant to be evaluative in any way. And perhaps it's just my own esoteric little question, but I want to ask it. Does the association currently have a D&O insurance policy? And if so, what does that policy consider to be the board?
So I'm not sure I'm equipped to answer the second part of that, but yes, insurances are in place. I know this from my service on the Audit and Finance Committee. I don't know if there's anyone else here that has more detail to answer the question that Ms. Koch has asked.
We'll look into that. Thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mancuso.
Peter Mancuso, Nassau County, 10th District Delegate. I just have a simple question. What are the fiduciary duties of each member of the House of Delegates if nothing is changed?
They would be the very fiduciary duties that are assigned to every member of a board of directors and not-for-profit. The common law duties of, geez, we can run through all of them, but it's essentially, your judgment being used to run the organization and the concomitant liabilities that are associated with doing it. Board service is important. Many of us, in fact, I suspect every person in this room has done it in some shape or form. And when you do it right, you want to be informed, you want to be aware, and you want to be actively participating in decision makings. For right or for wrong, that isn't the way that the House has functioned over the course of many years. And could it be done a different way? Yes. Is it the judgment of the Bylaws Committee and I dare say the Strategic Planning Committee that I served on for 4 years that that's the right way? No.
Are there any other questions? All right. Oh. No, we're not, there's no motions on this. This is just to subscribe or not subscribe. Wait, okay, go ahead and approach the microphone, please. Past President Gersman.
I'd like to make a motion that we remove Article 9 from the subscription list and ask the Bylaws Committee to reconsider the position that it's taken with respect to the Finance Committee.
I think that's a matter to be taken up in January when there's, when the matter is going to be before the House. So that's the decision of the chair. This is to subscribe or not subscribe to as proposed by the chair of the Bylaws Committee.
So I have to vote no if I don't want Article 9 subscribed
Yes.
in its present form?
Yes. It's not a vote. It's either subscribe or don't subscribe. Don't sign it if it doesn't meet with your approval.
There again, if I may, Chair.
Absolutely.
It's important that we move forward with this subscription today if the House so desires. If the House doesn't desire, then these wouldn't be put up for vote in January. But being out of compliance for another year is something that I don't think we should do. The Bylaws Committee will, of course, hear any suggestions between now and January. And if there is some way for us to address individual concerns consistent with the work that we've done or through an amendment, I think we would consider an amendment at that time. I do believe an amendment to the proposed bylaws amendments would be germane at the annual membership meeting. And I think that may be a mechanism that we could accomplish what we're trying to do.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Schofield. Please remember to sign and return or not your subscription forms in person or by email.
Thank you.
Pass those over to the center aisle. They'll be collected. Our next agenda item, Association President Domenick Napoletano will present the report of the president.
We'll wait until everybody settles down. No, it's all right. Good morning, everyone. Before I present my report, I would like to call past President Andrew Brown back to the podium so that he can add what was missed at the nominating committee in his report. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to make a very slight amendment to the report of the nominating committee that was provided earlier this morning. And this amendment is with respect to the elected delegates to the House of Delegates for the 12th district. Those elected were nominated are Michael Daly, Paul London, and Yana Roy. With respect to the report given earlier, it remains intact except for that slight change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Once again, good morning, everyone. Before I begin my report, I would like to take a moment to share with you my thoughts about a colleague of ours, Ariel Weinstock. Ariel passed away this past summer following a tragic accident that occurred in June of 2023 at our House of Delegates meeting in Cooperstown. It was Ariel's first House meeting, and he was just beginning to share his talents with us as a member of the real property section, just as his father Ben had done for many years. We lost a very special person in Ariel, and trust me, he is dearly missed by everyone. I had a chance to visit his beautiful family during a Shiva call that I paid to his home in Long Island. Ariel was undoubtedly a talented lawyer. He was the only person who was ever hired by his firm directly out of law school. And he made partner quicker than anyone in that firm's history. However, when speaking with his family, when I paid the Shiva call, the biggest impression that I was left with was how they spoke about his infectious smile, his laugh, his devotion to being a father, a husband, a brother, and a son. Ariel's father, Ben, was to have joined us this morning. We made arrangements for him to stay at the Renaissance. But unfortunately, Thursday morning, I received a call before I left to come up by Ben, who told me that he could not attend today. And the reason being that he lost another family member just that same day. His father-in-law passed. And so we are sad to not have Ben with us, but we send our deepest condolences to him, to his wife, Eileen, to Ariel's wife, Lauren, to their children, Owen and Sadie. And may all of our wishes and all of our prayers be with the entire Weinstock family. And so I would ask for a moment of silence so that we can remember our dear colleague. Thank you very much. Later in this morning's program, you will hear by President-elect Kathleen Sweet, who will pay tribute to Maryann Saccomando Freedman, who, as you know, was the first female president of this association. Maryann was a pioneer who assumed the presidency in 1987. She exemplified the power and the courage and challenging perseverance of those women who are in this profession. Her impact over these many years has empowered, truly has empowered many of the women whom I share this dais with, and many of you women who are here in this audience. An unimaginable feat just 37 years ago. Imagine, only 37 years ago, this room would not be filled with the talent of the women that it has here today. Kathleen, I look very much forward to hearing about Maryann, whom, when I would speak to her, either in person when we would meet or over the phone, I would speak to her in Italian, because Maryann actually spoke Italian and she wrote Italian. So when we conversed with one another, we found it nice to do so. The launch of our new membership model, as you've heard now from many of our speakers, is the most exciting and significant innovative process that we have done in over the 150 years of our history. It elevates the value of the membership of our association more than it ever has before. More importantly, it's helped us to do our jobs more effectively and allow us to take advantage of the vast collection of forms, publications, and continuing legal education classes in one single price. The initial feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Since we rolled this out to our new members, as of Tuesday, this past Tuesday, 685 individuals have joined us who were not members last year. 3,857 others have already renewed their 2025 membership. And an additional 719 additional section memberships have been purchased. That is just a snippet of what we believe is going to be an astonishing way to bring new members into our association. I wish to give many thanks to Michelle Wildgrube, Clotel Drakeford, who chaired the membership committee last year, and of course the entire committee, so that many others who have worked tirelessly to put this initiative into motion. I want to also give a much welcome thanks to Michael McNamara, our Finance Committee Chair, to Treasurer Susan Harper, the entire New York State Bar Association staff who has worked diligently to ensure that the renovation project of our bar center has stayed within budget, as Michael reported earlier. Before I leave the topic of finance, it is with great pleasure that I take a moment to recognize an individual whom you've heard again being recognized for her 27 years of steadfast service to the association. But this time I'm going to embarrass her. Come on. No. Come up here. Chris, I got to tell you, for the 4 years that I was treasurer, for the years of all of our past treasurers and past presidents, Sharon, Seymour, and all of the others who have been graced with your knowledge, I could not thank you more for all of that you did for me, for all that you have done for all of those that I just mentioned, and for all that you've done for this entire association. So I brought her up because I want all of you to see her here, because this is where she belongs, in front of all of you, because she has done the work for all of you. Chris, God bless you, and thank you so much. Now, I want to address a decision that the officers of this association made this past summer. It was a decision that impacted the Trial Academy. But before I get into that, I want to first thank all of the volunteers, all of the instructors, each and every one of the participants who attended the Trial Academy over its 15-year history. The Trial Academy, as many of you may or may not know, is a program that is to inspire trial lawyers, potential trial lawyers. Program is unique. It's unique because it is a week-long, interactive, intensive trial experience program which provides the attendees with detailed fact patterns and an opportunity to be critiqued on opening and closing statements, direct and cross-examination with actual live witnesses before a panel of instructors. We are greatly appreciative for all of the work that everyone in that Trial Academy has dedicated themselves to for over the 15 years that it's been in existence. We generally have between 40 and 50 participants each year. And most of the people who attend have, from all reports, found it to be a very valuable experience. Now, it's the positive, but with it comes the negative. The number of instructors and volunteers has sometimes exceeded 3 times the number of attendees. That's an imbalance. The cost of the association's time, staff time, has been rather exorbitant. Over 1,000 hours last year alone in staff time. And so the officers, not just me, as it's somehow been mistakenly reported, made a decision to put the academy on pause. Not to terminate it, not to cancel it, not to abolish it, not to scrap it, or any other adjective that you care to use to identify it in that negative way. We said we were going to put it on pause, and we did. And again, without getting into the particulars more than I already have, it's going to come back, but not this year. And the way it's going to come back is that I have appointed right now 4 individuals who are going to study and look at how it's been run, how it's been worked, how it's been funded. And those 4 individuals right now are immediate past President Dick Lewis, our treasurer, Susan Harper, past President Sharon Stern-Gersman, and a friend of the Academy and a friend of mine and of all of us, well, Tim hasn't been here for a while, Tim Fennell. I am going to appoint one more person from one of the sections who have been very instrumental in making that Trial Academy work. I haven't decided who it's going to be yet because I want to study who's out there that's going to lend a positive hand towards it. But it will be a young person, a young lawyer, because again, the program was designed for the young lawyer. So once those 4 and potentially 5 individuals sit down and look at what was done and look and see how we can do this better, it will come back, as we said it would. Because once again, all that we, not me, we decided to do is to put this on pause. Because we felt that the new model, which you've heard now many times over, for right now, was what our priority should be. And given that it is a very strong priority because it means new members, it means that we get the money in order to run all of this from those members. That's where we concentrated our efforts. And so far, it's proven to be a pretty good decision. At least I think it is. So I would like to move on from this issue because it has taken up more time than it should have, in my opinion. And again, I'm not making light of it. It's important to everyone who has spent many years and have dedicated much of their time to making it work. But we need to move on. So one of the reasons why we need to move on is because we have an annual meeting coming up at the New York Hilton Midtown on January 14th through the 17th. We will present at our annual meeting our gold medal to Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. We'll do so at the Presidential Gala, where he will rather take part in a fireside chat. We did that with Justice Kagan, if you recall, some years ago, and it proved out to be quite well. Justice Breyer is a loyal person to the rule of law, which is why he so deeply deserves the gold medal. Another one of our major events at the Presidential Summit will focus on the physical and emotional abuse inflicted on victims during the war. Sexual violence has occurred throughout history because of a failure to prosecute those who are responsible. Panelists at the summit will discuss firsthand how they should hold the perpetrators accountable. We will also have an update regarding ongoing impact on AI, which is having in our profession. We will again hear from renowned experts, Bridget McCormick, who is the president and CEO of the American Arbitration Association, and Catherine Forrest, who is a partner and co-chair of the digital technology practice at Paul Weiss. This spring, we were proud to have Justice Sotomayor at our Civics Convocation, which immediate past President Dick Lewis held. Justice Sotomayor shared her unique insight on the critical need to understand how government works so that citizens know how to advocate for change. This was an initiative that Chief Justice Wilson suggested that we continue, and we will continue it. As you probably know, the 2024 legislative session was another success for our association. We lobbied for a bill that would exempt non-electronic notarial acts from the vigorous record-keeping requirements that were previously set forth by the Department of State. Our members played a key role in this by participating in a campaign that generated over 500 letters to members of the legislature. The bill passed both houses, the Assembly and the Senate, and we are continuously encouraging the governor to sign the bill. We also advocated for assigned council rate increases. That was again included in the budget for this year. This ensures that the state shares the cost and the burden rather than the municipalities. However, we will continue to push for the state to fully fund the initiative going forward and insist that such backing be accompanied by a recurring rate increase for assigned council. We also pushed for several other bills that passed both houses of the legislature, including one that increased the number of family court judges throughout the state and a bill that would expand the use of e-filing reports. We backed a bill that will provide for state-paid justices and judges to receive death benefits even if they were not retired at the time of their passing, another that removes a lifetime ban on jury duty for convicted felons. Later today, we will be seeking your approval and recommendation that will urge the court system to increase funding for the state's 3 lawyer assistant programs, including our own. We do exceptional work through that program in helping our members get through some of the most difficult times. We also have launched, as I indicated that we would at the beginning of my presidency, various projects. I'm going to call them projects, even though Dave is looking at me and saying you can't call them projects. They have to be the task forces or working groups, or because that's what the bylaws say. But in any event, we've launched some projects. I'm going to call them projects. I'm going to continue to do so. I have said from the very beginning of my term that we, meaning this association, has the talent right here, both in this room, in all of the sections, and all of the committees that are made up of our great association, the talent to do great things. The brain power is enormous. No idea what that is. And so what I've done is I have put together various sections and committees to work together on these projects. And so one of them is a blue ribbon panel task force on opioid addiction, which includes district attorneys, distinguished judges, prominent public defenders, and leaders in addiction treatment programs. Mary Beth Morrissey, who is chairing the task force, which will recommend new laws and policies to address the rampant opioid addiction, not only here in New York State, but across the country. One of my other initiatives, in assuming my presidency, was to incorporate the CPLR committee, which I chaired some years ago, along with Tickle and Tri-Lawyers, to work together in developing proposals for a deep change in the CPLR. Now, as I mentioned, this is not going to be a project that's going to take 1 year to do. It's going to continue over a number of years. And at the end of the day, hopefully, we will have a new CPLR in the state of New York. One of my other initiatives is to revamp the CPL. And for that, I have enlisted the assistance of the criminal justice section, which is led by our dear friend, Leah, who's here, and exploring changes to the criminal justice law. The real property section is also exploring ideas to ensure that individuals do not have to wait months to appear before a judge in a housing court, because it's taking months to get to be before a judge. Our torts committee, again, along with Tickle, Tri-Lawyers, is exploring changes to the archaic no-fault law. One last thing. I don't know how many of you in this room know of anyone who has experienced, lawyers I'm speaking of, over the age of 50, who has experienced discrimination in hiring. Well, it happens to be occurring on a quite rapid pace. And so I have, again, incorporated the 50+ section, chaired by Adam Simon, Judge Adam Simon, who's here, along with the Civil Rights Committee and the Labor and Employment section. Those 3 sections and committees are going to look at and explore exactly what is going on with lawyers being discriminated against because of their age. And they will hopefully propose new legislation, which we will take to the Hill and have it passed here, and perhaps maybe even recommend some new federal legislation to assist in eliminating the discrimination being felt by our senior members. You know, as I said, I'm being handed a note. It's like, shut up already. It sort of says that, but in any event, I will do so. I truly hope that I have given those who have taken angst with what we decided to do this year with the Trial Academy, to feel that they have not been neglected, insulted. If anyone has been insulted by what we did, then as the president, I'll take the hit. I'm sorry. There was no ill intent meant by the decision that was made. There was no personal animus towards anyone for that decision which was made. It was made for very solid and positive reasons. And as I mentioned a minute ago, I'd like to move on. So, Madam Chair, should I proceed to my next appointment?
Yes, thank you. The award winner is here for the Ruth Stimson
Okay.
Award, so we're going to move on.
All right, so we're going to move on. Okay, this is the note. Please shut up. Much respect. So once again, good morning, everyone. One of my duties, which I most enjoy in my presidency, is to look at the great works that our members do in communities across this wonderful Empire State of ours. And so today I am thrilled to share the accomplishments and the contributions of our Ruth Stimson Award winner, Amanda Lyons. In 2018, Amanda was a paralegal with a full caseload at her firm at Hack Rose, Sharimpa, and I can't pronounce it, Shriveri. In just 6 years' time, she earned her law degree studying at night, passed the bar, and rose quickly to her firm in the position of its managing attorney. That's her resume, but there is so much more to her story. For years, Amanda was the go-to person in her firm to organize community service projects. Her enthusiasm for helping others only grew when the pandemic hit in 2020. Amanda started collecting food and other supplies for food pantries. When she found out that many pantries were closed, she started her own pop-up pantries on the sidewalk in different neighborhoods across New York City. And with that, the not-for-profit Amanda Donates were born. In her nomination letter for Amanda, a friend and colleague, Hillary Nappy, said that Amanda carries a full caseload by day and a superhero and unprivileged at night. It is for the heroic work that we honor Amanda Lyons today. In her 4 years since founding Amanda Donates, she has expounded the growth by aiding school children, fire victims, homeless, crime victims, and veterans. The group has adopted entire school communities, providing food and holiday gifts for children who are in need. Teachers from New York City Public School say that the Amanda Donates serves her to work. The work that she brings, brings a light of hope, of renewal to many families dealing with poverty. A high school administrator wrote of Amanda, Miss Lyons' passion to leave the world in a better place is matched only by her generous spirit of heart. I would not say it better myself, but it is my honor to present the Ruth Stimson Award to Amanda.
Thank you so much.
She can tell you better what she does than I just did. So Amanda, this microphone is yours.
They didn't tell me I was.
Oh, well, now you are. They didn't tell you, but I just did.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. This is a great honor. Amanda Donates is a grassroots organization that started in my mom's living room 4 years ago. And since then, we've helped hundreds and thousands of local families, whether it be with groceries during the pandemic, school supplies. Every year on Thanksgiving, we provide complete Thanksgiving meals to local families. And as was mentioned, during the holiday season, we adopt Title I schools and we grant wishes to all of their children before the holiday break. So what started as a very small project blossomed into what Amanda Donates is today. And Amanda Donates is only what it's become because of the people that have supported it. So I'm very grateful for all of the people that are behind me and that recognize the great work that we do. So thank you so much.
Congratulations, Amanda. I was honored to be asked by President Napoletano to take a few moments of our time today to remember Maryann Saccomando Freedman, the first woman president of the New York State Bar Association. Also, the first woman president of the Bar Association of Erie County. Her full obituary is in the materials for today's meeting. I encourage you to see, review, enjoy the several stories of her perseverance and her achievements that are reflected in the obituary. Maryann passed away on June 12th. She was 89 years old. The words trailblazer, role model, icon are all good words. How's this one? Better? Born in 1934 to uneducated Sicilian immigrants, Maryann's parents, Vincenzo and Rosaria, were a blacksmith and a seamstress. When Maryann graduated from law school in 1958, she was one of only 3 women in a class of 100. At the time of her death, she was a prominent attorney, a community leader. Having converted to Judaism when she was married, this tiny little Italian lady died a proud Jewish grandmother. She taught women and men, all of us, to push past boundaries, especially the ones that we erect for ourselves. She was hardly one-dimensional. She was the heart and soul of every organization she belonged to, and eventually, she was the leader of most of them. No matter what she did, Maryann was always all in. She loved opera, she played the piano, she threw legendary parties, and she made sure that she developed close individual relationships with everyone she could. At her funeral, one of her granddaughters shared that Maryann took each of her grandchildren on a special one-on-one trip. Her rule while they were in Italy was that they had to eat gelato every day. I loved Maryann and I will miss her. Please enjoy the tributes prepared by those who knew her better than I did.
My name is Michelle Schwach, and I am the law clerk to Judge Mary Carney in Erie County Family Court in Buffalo, New York. Before this, I was fortunate to start my legal career when Maryann, who was of counsel at the law firm of Cohen and Lombardo, hired me as a brand new associate. So we are all unique, but Maryann was truly one of a kind. She taught me how to be a lawyer. She set the highest standards and mentored young lawyers with a passion. She had high expectations and never took shortcuts. She impressed upon me the true honor it was to be someone's advocate. Her leadership abilities were unparalleled. She was fiercely dedicated to the mission in front of her. People were drawn to her because she had an exceptional gift that made everyone feel seen and valued. She could say no firmly but kindly, which was refreshing in a world where no is not always the expected answer. She commanded respect. She also emphasized the importance of balance in life. She reassured me when I sought her insight on how she managed to do just so much. You know, leader, mother, lawyer, all of it. She said, you know, you can do this, just not all at the same time. She was authentic. She shared her stories openly and passionately embraced life outside of work. She had interests like geology, current events, travel, history, gardening, horticulture, opera, theater, all of which brought her great joy. She laughed at herself, encouraged others to grow, and set high expectations for those around her. So it's vital that the State Bar and the House of Delegates remember her legacy. As the first female president of this vital organization, she revolutionized the status quo for women in law. She cared deeply about the profession and took on projects both in her career as a lawyer and as a leader in the State Bar to make things better. She showed us what being in our power and standing up for what's right can do. Thank you. I am so grateful to have been asked to share this message with you.
I am honored to have been asked to say a few words about my dear longtime friend, Maryann Saccomando Freedman. Before the American Bar Association, City Bar, or the New York County Lawyers Association had a female president, Maryann served as State Bar president. She was a compelling figure and holds a place among the pantheon of great leaders of our profession. And for me, she was a very special friend. The discrimination, obstacles, and unfair challenges that Maryann faced upon graduating from law school in 1958 are difficult to fathom fully today. Because she was a woman, Maryann had trouble gaining employment as an attorney, and she had many stories of blatant sexism, discrimination, and boorish behavior. And she overcame all of those with dignity and steely determination to succeed. As I have said many times, Maryann's support was critical in my election as State Bar president, and one could not have had a more dedicated friend or a more persuasive supporter. During my term, we spoke frequently on the phone about bar matters, house agendas, and relevant legal issues. I traveled to Buffalo several times for various bar events and always relished the opportunity to have dinner with Maryann and her beloved husband, Bob, before he passed. Her advice was always sound, her criticism always fair. Maryann Saccomando Freedman was a person of great moral character and deep love of her family, our profession, and this association. She was an inspiration. And she was a very, very special friend.
I first met Maryann during the summer of 1980. I had just moved to Buffalo and my husband, Dan, had known her husband, Bobby, all his life. I was in awe of her as she had just been elected president-elect of the Erie County Bar, the first woman to do so. About a year later, I was working side by side with her as she was Bill Ostrowski's law clerk and I worked for Joe Mintz. We had a small group of women who supported each other's aspirations. We all encouraged Maryann, and she made sure we all had appointments to committees in NYSBA. It was at Maryann's request that we created the Bar Review and brought our show to NYSBA meetings. Maryann and I once shared a room for an ABA meeting. I had forgotten how much Maryann smoked, and I would never ask her not to, so I cranked up the air conditioning to counteract the smoke. When I came home, I explained my dilemma to Dan, that I loved Maryann, but I could not stand the smoke and could never share a room with her again. He volunteered to talk to Bobby, who immediately told him that Maryann was so sorry she could never share a room with me again because I kept the room so cold, our own version of the gift of the Magi. Maryann was a brilliant role model to many of us.
I would never have run for president of NISBA without her encouragement and assistance. I was fortunate to record her oral history, which is now in the Library of Congress, and got to learn so much about her and all her groundbreaking roles. She made an enormous impact on everything she touched, and we will miss her wise counsel, her honest opinions, and her love of music.
Mom thought her becoming New York State Bar's first female president was the greatest of her achievements. Well, other than my brother Don and me, of course. And believe me, there were many other achievements. Mom believed she had been entrusted with the skills to help people, and she needed to do that in any way she could, both individually and in the community. Community meaning Buffalo, Italians, women, Jews, attorneys, etc. As you know, Mom faced a lot of discrimination, mostly because she was a woman. But the adversity served to fortify her resolve to change the legal culture for women and minorities, which she believed was best done from within. That's why she worked so hard to become the first female president of her local bar and then the New York bar. Then she used her presidencies to boost others, appointing women and minorities in key positions and mentoring future organization leaders. A couple years ago, Mom was invited to speak about her career to a group of young female attorneys. They couldn't believe the stories of discrimination Mom had faced. I was upset with their disbelief. To me, it meant they failed to grasp how much Mom had to overcome and what a great job she did. But Mom, she was thrilled. To her, it meant victory, that she and others like her had been successful in building a culture of equal opportunity, forever changing the landscape for those who followed. I want to thank you personally for recognizing Mom today. I miss her, but she's left behind a legacy that I hope inspires us all. Thank you.
What kind of advice could you give to someone that wants to become a leader of the association in what they should do and how they should conduct themselves?
I think you have to become involved. And I would advise them to get onto a committee they like and to do as much work on that committee as they can. Eventually, they should present themselves in a report, if they can do that, in a report to the House, and then become a member of the House. You know, we have members of the House who speak just for the purpose of speaking, just to hear themselves talk. And I think that's a waste of their time, and it's a waste of the House of Delegates' time. But there are people in the House who have something important to say, who never say it. And I don't understand that. If they've got something important to say, they should say it. They should stand up at the microphone and say it. And I think that the leadership qualities will come forth. I think they'll be seen. And once they're seen, they can't be stopped. They'll just go on and become leaders.
What, in your mind, is your greatest accomplishment in your term as president?
I would have to say, in all honesty, I think the biggest accomplishment was showing that a woman could do the job every bit as well as a man. I think that was the biggest accomplishment.
Not convinced I should trust that mic just yet. Next will be the report of the Committee on Membership. I think Michelle Wildgrube is here for that. Thank you.
What a beautiful memorial. Thanks for putting that together. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Wildgrube, and I'm here to do the membership report. So we have some information and updates regarding membership today. We've got a little bit of a PowerPoint. So we're going to talk about the new NSBO homepage, which I hope you will all visit sometime very soon. We're going to talk about the new membership model launch, our Join and Renew campaign, and then I'm going to give you some stats, which I know you're looking forward to, but I'm going to warn you, it is very early on the stats front. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update, but I'm looking forward to giving you more information in January. So here's our new webpage. What do you think? It's pretty good, right? We decided that if we were going to undertake a major membership change and campaign, that we needed a fresh new look. We needed to have that look forward facing. We also needed to make sure that our infrastructure was prepared to handle the traffic. And I believe we have succeeded in that endeavor. So I'm hoping that you won't see scrolling lines. You will go straight to your new registration and be able to register. So we got a little facelift. We wanted to make sure that we looked fresh and that we were attractive to new members, right? Attractive to our current members, attractive to our new members. We wanted to make sure that we looked like an organization that people wanted to join and that felt like a place where they would be comfortable. So far we're doing well with our new design. Again, our goal is that people will stop on our homepage to see what's up, to see what's going on. We are looking, you're going to be pleased about this, to decrease the number of emails that we send you from the Bar Association. You might say, why would we do that? Well, you know that little unsubscribe option? When people unsubscribe, it's very hard for us to then get back into their lives. So we really want to avoid that. We really want to choose wisely the emails that we are sending you so that we are sending you emails that are appropriate and full of good information that you want to see. All right, so where are we at? We are live. We are up and running. On September 15th, the new model was put out there, allowing people to join on a subscription basis. All of you are all current members, so when you renew, you are going to be renewing for January 1st. So our year runs, it's a calendar year for all of you because you're all members now. For new members, they are going to be enrolling based on their anniversary date of their enrollment. So if you enrolled in September this year as a new member, you will then renew the following September, okay? So just so that everybody is clear on how it works and how it worked in the past. So that's how we're gonna slide into the new model. So the good news about working on a subscription model and on a model where we have renewals going on continuously is that we are going to avoid the dreaded drops. If you've been on the house for some time, you've heard about the drop season. We are looking forward to not having that and to having more continuity in our membership and in cash flow. So I would like to thank all of the people that helped us to get this together. It was a massive effort. NSBA staff was fantastic. Pat Stockley has joined us in membership, and we're so happy to have her here. Gerard and Pam were instrumental in putting this together. My co-chairs and my committee, thanks to all of them. We're so excited that this new membership model has launched. So we're going to talk a little bit about the campaign and how it's working. So we have hired the Martin Group out of Buffalo to help us to get this campaign off the ground. As I said, we have a little bit of a new look on our homepage. We also have a lot of new information going out and about, both in handouts and on the internet and the web. I'm going to do something that I don't know that anybody else has really done, unless you were, I guess, voting by phone and by through your phone. I'm going to ask you to take out your phones and I would like you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. NSBA puts out great posts on these platforms, and I don't know that everybody is seeing it. And actually, I do know that not everybody is seeing it because sometimes I go to like things and there's only 5 likes. I would love to see 100 likes. So if all of you were to be following Facebook, sharing or following NYSBA, sharing the content, we would have more traction in getting the word out to people about a wonderful organization we are. I know you all think that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So it's really my goal to increase the activity that we have on social media, because honestly, our younger members, that's what they want to see. We also need you to follow us on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is a huge way for us to get younger members. The stats on younger members looking at NYSBA information on LinkedIn are astounding. I will also say LinkedIn is a less expensive way for us to get the word out about NYSBA than the other platforms. So pretty amazing that LinkedIn is really such a heavily used site for our younger attorneys. So why do we want to be in front of them? Because they're not all members, right? We've already talked about the stats that so few of our colleagues are members of NYSBA. So again, we really want to get the word out. So what we're going to do is we have new campaigns going on search ads. We have campaigns against across numerous websites. We are doing geo-targeting campaigns. I have to say, I was kind of amazed when I heard about how this works. When you go to the annual meeting, there will be a geo-targeting campaign because you will have stepped within the geo fence of our marketing campaign. And all of a sudden, you will probably be seeing more NYSBA pop-ups than you had seen before. So if you think you're being followed, you pretty much are. So when you go on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, you will see an ad that is targeted to your location. We're also still sending out some emails. We're doing print ads in the New York Law Journal. We are doing print ads in all of our NYSBA materials. And we updated the look of our invoices that we mail in the mail. And I will tell you from personal experience, my office manager came to me not knowing exactly what I do with NYSBA and told me that how wonderful it was to re-up everyone in my firm on their membership because the form was so much easier. So I'm very excited about that. So that means that there's going to be hopefully a lot more activity on that front. And we're just making it easier so we don't get lost in people's mailboxes or lost on people's desks. So let's talk about some takeaways. I know you want to hear the stats. We have seen an overall renewal revenue increase of 26%. What does that look like? That looks like $325,000 in increased revenue. That is definitely due in part to our increase in dues. So as you know, we did have an increase in dues, which was much needed after more than a decade with no increases. The new returning joins we are seeing, or the new joins we're seeing up 26%, which is excellent for new members. We are seeing a little bit lower for renewing members, but I'm going to tell you that is going to catch up. I feel very confident that it will. Part of the issue is that people are mailing in their documentation, and NYSBA staff, please thank NYSBA staff members today as you go in and out of the building, because NYSBA staff is all pitching in to help to track those numbers. We can only process the information so quickly when we receive it by paper. So they're trying to process the checks and the registrations as quickly as they can. We are also seeing section membership increase. As you know, the new model includes 2 sections. Very, very, very valuable. I'm going to urge you to go back to your offices, or you could do it right now by email. Remind your colleagues that they can join 2 sections. When you renew on the web, it does prompt you to join the 2 sections. When you renew on paper, though, that prompt is not there. We are working hard, though, to catch up with people to make sure that they are joining 2 sections. We are seeing activity amongst the sections. Trust and Estates currently has 815 memberships that have come in. Real Property has 620. Business Law has 557, and Young Lawyers has 524. The other reason that we are not seeing everyone join 2 sections automatically is because Young Lawyers do not have the 2 sections included with their free membership. So they would have to pay to join.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I thought we had heard earlier today that, I'm sorry, you said young lawyers.
Young lawyers.
Pardon me. I was thinking law students.
Okay, young lawyers, yes. So,
Let her just finish the report and then we'll
Thank
have
you.
questions after. Thanks.
yep. So, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is the concept of auto renewals. Auto renewals might not seem like a strange concept to all of you because I am positive that there are things that you auto renew without thought, right? All of those subscriptions that you have that Clotel and I talked about when we first introduced this, Netflix, HBO, PBS, you're just on auto renewal with that, I'm pretty sure. You're not getting a reminder annually to re-up. They're just going to auto renew you until your credit card runs out. At that point, you will probably get a notice that you need to, again, give them new numbers and continue your subscription. So when we made our system updates, we implemented an auto renewal process. We have definitely had a little bit of pushback, and certainly if you don't want to auto renew, you do not have to. However, we do hope that you will, because it just makes it easier for everybody, because we are just going to be going continuously. You know how I'm talking about this jam up with the paper renewals? We wouldn't have that if you were on an auto renewal. No, so it really helps us. And I think, again, in our digital economy, this is what we see all over the place. It's nothing new. I also will tell you this, you can cancel at any time. I hope that none of you ever will, but that is an option. So we think that the new system is going very well. Again, it's very new, and I look forward to giving you another update in January.
Thank you.
Eileen Buholtz from the 7th Judicial District. I just looked at Instagram and all I can find is NISBA easel and NISBA ComFed. So I don't know what NISBA
There is a NISBA site. I can show it to you right after.
Yeah, but it's not under NISBA, but okay.
Yeah.
With regard to
It
the
might be under New York State Bar Association,
maybe
spelled out.
spelled
Yeah.
out, okay. With regard to the automatic renewal, are you going to be sending out reminders that it's going to be automatic renew because you're required to do so if the
Of course
renewal
we would.
period is more than
Yep.
6 months? Okay. And the last one, if I'm getting reminders to renew, if I renew now, if I renew today, is that going to put my year, November
Good
2nd?
question. No, it won't, because you are currently when you renewed last year, you renewed through December. So your next start will be January.
Okay.
So there's a whole crew of us that are always going to be January. Yes.
Thank you, Michelle, for all this work that you do. I appreciate it personally. I know how hard you work. I wanted to make a comment before when I thought you were talking about law students. Everybody in the room should be aware that law students are able to join the association for free.
Yes.
And get every section membership they want. If they want to sign up for 28 sections, God bless them. Of course, that doesn't count for the revenue sharing royalty model, but people should be aware that that's a way to help drive membership in the association and sections, as well as help raise the next generation of involved members and leaders. So I urge everybody to please follow up on that. On the automatic renewal issue, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, that at the time you renew online, you can select automatic renewals,
Correct.
but there's no way to select, I want to pay one time. You have to call the membership resource center. Is that right?
It's a little technical for me. We can follow up with you and let you know.
Okay, thanks.
On Instagram, just so you all know, we are New York State Bar. So NY State Bar.
Peter Levy, elected delegate from the 10th. One question on the section memberships. So when I renewed in September, just when it came out, I went through it, paid by credit card, and I did not currently have any section memberships. So I figured at some point it would click in, do you have sections? It didn't. So I waited a few weeks thinking maybe I'd get an email, what sections you want to join? I didn't. I contacted membership. Within 2 minutes, they put me in two sections. So is that a flaw in my lack of skill, or is it? a
No,
flaw in
it's
the
not your
system?
lack of skill, but that has
Well,
been.
I do have
that
lack of
has-
skill, so.
No, no, no. That's been updated though.
Okay, so
So,
then it
yeah,
will
yep.
automatically say what sections you want to
Yes.
join. Good.
We are,
Thank-
we are new, it is a new process. It is now giving a prompt, reminder, you can join two sections. It is not blockading you, but there is a reminder that is coming up.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your report. Next will be the report and recommendations of the Committee on Disability Rights. Virtual? The presentation will be coming shortly.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, thank you.
Allie, do you want to introduce yourself first? Yes. Hi, I'm Alison Morris. I'm the chair of the Committee on Disability Rights, and I'm here with Jennifer Monthie, one of our members and a key person in putting forth this report. And I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer at this. Thank you all.
Thank you all for having us. So the Committee on Disability has presented this report because it finds that there is urgent need to reform Article 17A of the Surrogates Court Procedure Act. The committee provides in the report a detailed historical and legal analysis to support this conclusion. Ultimately, though, the purpose of the report is to set forth this analysis and 14 general principles which a guardianship statute for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities should contain. These 14 principles are located in both the executive summary and in the report, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them for you today. First, that a guardianship must be designed to maximize self-reliance and independence of an individual, that the appointment of a guardian must be necessary and the least restrictive form of intervention available, and that all people alleged to be in need of guardianship are entitled to due process protections, including notice in plain language and the right to counsel of their own choosing. And the guardianship must not be appointed at a hearing where a person being placed under guardianship is not present, and except under really exceptional circumstances. And finally, that a person under guardianship has a right to seek review of the guardianship with a clear process to initiate a restoration. The committee is offering both the report and a robust appendix to help guide policymakers in the upcoming 2025 legislative session. This sort of analysis is an encapsulation of the work around examining Article 17A of the Surrogate Court Procedure Act. I really don't want to take out a ton of your time, but I'm happy to answer questions, and Allie as well to answer questions.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions online? No. Okay, thank you very much. At its meeting yesterday, the Executive Committee voted to approve the report. May I have a motion to approve? And all in favor? Well, first of all, is there any further discussion? Could you come down to the well if you're gonna? Oh, Evita. Could you please? Could you please? Could you please? Okay. Yeah, would you please?
I'm sorry, I just don't practice this area of law.
Could you just identify yourself, your affiliation, and then
Sure,
share
I'm
your contribution to
Hack
the
from the banking
discussion?
law section. No, I'm Barry Skidelsky from Easel. And I'm just saying that in the executive summary part of this report, at the top, it says there's an urgent need to reform 17A. I think I'm just suggesting it should say of the SCPA. I don't practice this area of law, but I'm diligent enough to want to read and understand as much as I can and think that might be helpful. That's all.
Would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Maybe nobody cares, I mean, but I'll just.
Sorry, are you
I
asking
just
us?
noticed that.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
That is fine, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. As amended, do we have a motion to approve? In a second? All right. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I know. We're tallying the online. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Next is the report of the Committee on Attorney Wellbeing from Kimberly Wolf-Price.
Thank you. Good morning. I find it a little ironic that well-being is potentially standing between you and getting out to a sunny November Saturday. As I said, I'm Kim Wolf-Price. I'm chair of the Attorney Wellbeing Committee, and there is no voting that you need to do here. This is our update on what's been happening since the task force report. As you all know, the task force report was accepted in October 2021. The Honorable Karen Peters and Libby Clark chaired the task force, and Libby became the first chair of the standing committee, which was created from that task force. About a year ago, Dick Lewis called and asked if I would take over as chair of the Attorney Wellbeing Committee, and I was happy to say yes. And I thought it went pretty well with, at the time, being the chair of the Women in Law section as well. So that is the history from October 2021 to now. We don't need to go through all of these. Maybe if we could go to slide 4, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the committee and what's happening. And you can read the full recommendation and status report that's in your packet. The committee's role is to implement the task force report. The standing committee, when created by the Bar Association leadership, recognized the critical importance of long-term commitment to attorney well-being. It is critical, and in the critical part here also has been the commitment from our leadership. Not only was the committee created, but also a liaison position. And in that position, though I know we all think as lawyers that we can be experts in many things, our liaison has a social work degree and can help us in areas of mental health and well-being that perhaps we are not as adept at. Jen Clayton joined us and has been very critical in bringing forth the 8 pillars, which is you'll see in your slides as well. If you could advance, I think 2 more. The slides, thanks. Really what the Committee on Attorney Wellbeing does is focuses on issues of the day-to-day. It does in turn enhance the work of the 4-decade-long commitment of the LAP program here at the Bar Association. It's so adeptly run by Stacey Wiley, but it does a lot more. It helps us find ways that we can change our profession for the better and to help us as we approach these careers, which frankly are longer and longer for all of us. So some of our highlights, if you could advance, I think, to the next slide. The subcommittees of this committee are active, engaged, and really working to complete the work of the task force. They are some of the most active subcommittees I have ever been part of at the Bar Association. Programming provides many opportunities and educational programs. CLE, run by Ann Lipinski, integrates very well with the Bridge the Gap program. An important piece is that we talk to the youngest lawyers and help them build great habits. So the well-being component is now part of Bridge the Gap, and our committee works with Kathy Sahutsky and her team. Law schools, of course, are another incredibly important component of this. That subcommittee is run by Rosemary Queenan, and in 2024, we had our first meeting of law school stakeholders. As many of you may know, the state of New York has a lot of law schools. We also have at least 4 new law school deans. So we have a great opportunity with the meeting that we'll be holding in 2025 to continue those conversations with those new leaders on the importance of well-being. The members of the Attorney Wellbeing Committee are some of the most dedicated and active Bar Association members I have worked with on the committee level. They want to work with other committees, sections, leadership, law schools, and subcommittees, and they show up. I don't have to pitch hit and find myself doing all of the programming. It's pretty amazing how committed this group of people are. I also think it's important for you to know that New York is seen as a leader in this area. Just this past week, I was asked to record an interview with the Australian Law Journal, where they asked about the work we are doing here in New York on attorney well-being. The issues of burnout, of inclusion and belonging, these are all critical to attorney well-being. And in our efforts to have our profession truly represent our communities and to sustainable long-term success, we have to make sure that we are focusing on attorney well-being. A burned out attorney, an attorney who feels that they cannot be themselves at work, these are very difficult hurdles to overcome to be truly successful and have long-term legal careers. So besides our 8 pillars, which you see, we have many programs that focus on real change. And real change, of course, will come as many things in our profession do, sort of incrementally. It's going to be by habit change from all of us, by language change, the ways that we speak about burnout, stress, and well-being, and of course, our actions. Some of them are simple. I think we often think that well-being is yoga or breathing, and I'm not saying that those don't have the place. I made the joke in front of the EC yesterday that though it didn't end as I wanted to, I did watch all those Yankee batters take a nice breath before they swung the bat. And it does matter, right? It can reset us. All of those tools are part of our toolkit for attorney well-being. But some things are just easier and more simple. They're just daily habits. Delay, deliver that email that you're doing at 9 o'clock at night because it works for your schedule, but that maybe the junior attorney doesn't need to see, or your staff member doesn't need to see at 9 o'clock at night. Small habits can make a big difference. Those of us who are on the more senior side of attorneys for multiple decades can make sure we're having conversations with the juniors such as, yes, I'm actually out that day because I'm taking mom to a doctor's appointment. Letting them know that being human is part of being a lawyer. Today, I am grateful that the bar is here because I'm going to go see the college kid that I have. And then tomorrow, I'm going to take mom somewhere. Having those conversations, making it part of our everyday life is really important as we try to prepare these junior lawyers and ourselves for careers that last 4 and 5 decades at times. So we also have to speak about stress a little differently. This is a stressful profession, hands down, that's true. But if we talk about ways in which we can overcome stress, if we talk about strategies for combating stress, and even ways we can harness it at times for our advantage, we change the dialogue from constant negativity to a more positive and hopeful look at our profession. This is not all or nothing. Everything from the breathing and yoga programs, things that impact all of these different areas of the 8 pillars that you see before you, they are important. Stepping away, taking the breath, walking in nature, whatever it is. Some days none of that will happen. And that's part of how we figure out where we can be within this profession and how we can make it stronger. I work at a private firm. I do talk about things like client service, success, billable hours, unit value. Those matter. These are not things in opposition to one another. Attorneys that are healthy, whether they have an overwhelming public defender caseload or they are crushing a lot of billable hours, attorneys that can find this sense of well-being will be more successful. There is a business case for this as well. So done right, all of these concepts actually complement and enhance our profession. So I'm going to leave you with an ask, and that is today that I ask each of you today to find ways to engage with the Attorney Wellbeing Committee and our work. Whether it is, as the great recommendation from Taya yesterday, I get before the section caucus and talk about how your sections can work with us, whether your committees can, even if it's your private organization, your government agency, if you want to have conversations with your lawyers and aren't sure how to do it. The Attorney Wellbeing Committee serves as a resource for you in that way. So changing these habits, our language and our conversation really can help us build a more successful and healthy profession. So my thanks again to NYSBA's leadership for focusing on this and putting resources that way. And I'm happy to continue working with all of you to find ways that we can work with your sections, committees, and beyond. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, that's an informational report. Treasurer Susan Harper wanted to add to the discussion.
Hi, Susan. How you doing, Kim? Okay, Susan Harper, Treasurer. I want to thank Kim, and I am the EC liaison to the Wellness Committee, and I have to say, this is a very impressive committee. Their commitment, their dedication, the number of programs, my gosh, it's an enormous amount of programs. I really encourage everybody to take advantage of the opportunity to check out these programs. The other thing I also encourage you to take a look at is to think about these 8 pillars. These 8 pillars really, it's a wonderful way of thinking of your life and balance. I really like the fact that the Wellness Committee also included a financial pillar. We have so many students who really, that's all they do. And I read about this online all the time. Students, before they become a student, everybody's stressing about debt. And then people throughout their life stressing about retirement. So I really like the fact that they have that. There was a suggestion by somebody to incorporate wellness while doing a walk or something for the annual meeting. So I just wanted to share that, but I just wanted to really commend the whole entire committee in your leadership, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a raised hand online. Irma? Go ahead, Irma. Apparently she decided not to add to the discussion. Okay, moving right along. If you're following along with your scorecard, item number 14, report and recommendations from the Committee on CPLR, that has been tabled to January by the presenters. Next is the report and recommendations of the Task Force on Civics Convocation, Gail, Ehrlich, and Worona.
Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Gail Ehrlich, and this is Worona, and we are here to present the report of the Civics Convocation that took place in May. We are both the immediate past co-chairs of the Law, Youth, and Citizenship Committee, and we also were the co-chairs along with Christopher Riano of the task force for the convocation. Which was appointed by President Lewis. Our report is a summary of the proceedings of the Civics Education Convocation held here at the Bar Center, along with 10 recommendations for how the New York State Bar Association can work together with other stakeholders in the fields of law and education to better prepare students as well as adults to become more educated, active, and engaged citizens. If the title that we chose, To Safeguard Our Democracy, Making the Case for Civics Education, was urgent back when we started planning it before COVID hit us, it's even more urgent now. If our population lacks fundamental knowledge of what democracy is and how it works and its history and its norms, then we're in terrible trouble. And if we do not teach students the skills they need for healthy, respectful debate, we are in deeper trouble. As we stated on page 1, without a solid foundation in civics, our democracy faces the risk of erosion and the rise of civic disengagement, threatening the very fabric of our society. Where is the knowledge lacking? Well, we all know. Basic constitutional concepts such as rule of law. What are the 3 branches of government and how do they work? Separation of powers, free and fair elections, First Amendment rights, media literacy, how to discern fact from fiction in public discourse, and so on. Many of you attended the event here at the Bar Center. For those of you who did not, the excellent staff here at NYSBA helped us organize a great event. I want to shout out to the video guru, John Rogers, who took the recordings and broke them into watchable segments. How many of you have actually watched any of the Civics Convocation online on the NYSBA website? Okay, go watch it. It's in very good, biteable sections and a lot of good information. And in fact, I think we all need to take more advantage of the technology, the website, and please go do an interview with Bridget. She's only had 4 people since we got here. Here's what you can see if you watch the videos. You'll see leaders from the worlds of law and education help us understand where we stand today on civics and how we can do better. Many of them represent organizations with whom we can work as partners or support our educational civics initiatives, as we have recommended in C and G on page 16. We had a panel to start with on the national perspective, which represented the Bill of Rights Institute, iCivics, which was founded by the late Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, the New York City-based MCFA Challenge, and Generation Citizen, which is also in New York City. The panel was moderated by Chris, who was then the president of the Center for Civic Education. Panel 2 was the New York perspective, which was moderated by Liz Benjamin, and we had Commissioner of the State Ed Department, Betty Rosa, the Regents Chancellor Young, State Senator Shelley Mayer, who's chair of the Senate Education Committee in New York State, Professor Jonathan Collins from Columbia University Teachers College, and a former teacher and coach who is at Genesee Valley BOCES named Nick DeMuro, who is terrific. We learned that in New York State, we are doing pretty well compared to the other 50 states, among the 50 states, because we have a groundbreaking program for students in high school where they can get a seal of civic readiness on their diploma if they do certain civic-related activities and coursework. We had speakers from the bench. We had Judge Wilson, Chief Judge Wilson. We had Judge May D'Agostino from the Albany Federal Court. We had Justice Sonia Sotomayor by video feed. And she took questions from 10 students who were from in and around the Albany area. They competed for the ability to ask her a question. And we had a wrap-up panel, which was entitled, Where Do We Go From Here?, which Jay moderated, including NYSUT President Melinda Person, Teachers Union, Dr. Oliver Robinson, who's the superintendent from the Shenandoah Schools, And we had a high school teacher who is an award winner named Justin Hubbard, and he brought some of his former students who are now in college around the state. So I'm a former high school teacher of civics, and to me, hearing from the teacher was the most relevant thing, because the obstacles that teachers are facing now are almost insurmountable. Given our current divisive political climate, teachers really need the skills to be able to get students to discuss things in a civilized manner and not be polarized. I have a Google alert that's set up for civics education, and an article came across my feed that is titled, "Civics is Getting Harder to Teach," principals say. It's so discouraging. It said, teachers are now supposed to provide instruction on civics, but avoid controversy. I don't know how you do that. It's not healthy for teachers or students or democracy. We can't pretend we don't have controversy. We have to learn how to talk about it civilly. Some of our, so one of our recommendations on page 16, B, is to support professional development and teacher training for civics. We do a pretty good job at NYSBA with our mock trial program of getting teachers educated about mock trial and courtroom skills and case skills, but we need to do more. I do want to mention there's a little technical that was brought to my attention. We have a technical issue where our recommendations don't match the executive summary. It's nothing substantive. We will correct that. So if you're thinking to yourselves, well, what about legislation? Isn't there legislation that can help educational initiatives in civics? I'm going to turn that topic over to Jay, who will discuss all of our recommendations with you. Jay is the Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel of the New York State School Boards Association. He's a lifetime education lawyer, and he's very knowledgeable, and I will now hand it over to Jay.
Hi, everybody. I'm looking at everybody's faces. It looks like you've had a long day already. Just saying. So I just want to emphasize a couple things that Gail mentioned. First of all of you sitting here today should be very proud of this association. Gail highlighted what we tried to put together in this room, but really it was about how this association could assemble everybody on the planet, really, who has a love of this country, regardless of what political party you are a part of. To have a conversation about how we can get back to something we used to be able to do, which was to talk with each other as opposed to talk at each other. And civics is a super important aspect of that. But really the most important thing is to make sure that our kids who are going to school have media literacy skills, because everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own set of facts. And that's where we are as a nation right now. I don't know if you got the memo that says that we're a politically divided nation. Did you get that? So we really began to think along with Dick Lewis, who we give a special shout out to, about what this bar association could do. And the title that Gail was mentioning about preserving democracy is not hyperbole, sadly. I wish it was hyperbole, but it's not. Because if we don't get our act together about how to engage in civil discourse, we are in big trouble. So to the recommendations, I just wanted to mention, as Gail said, they're not recommendations that you guys would see typically, right? That we should legislate for this or we should do that. Really what this is about is recognizing that the Bar Association doesn't run the public education system, right? The state education department just up the street does. And so this is a question of how this organization can partner with the education community, all of whom were in this room. We had the head of the teachers union, right? We had the chancellor of the Board of Regents. We had the commissioner of education. We had other legislative leaders, all of which Gail just said, but I'm just emphasizing that again to show that we were bringing everybody into this family to figure out as a family how to really preserve our democracy and how to preserve it here in New York State. So the first recommendation was to advocate for increased funding and resources for civic education. We have a sad situation, right, where schools don't have necessarily the funding they need in this particular arena. So this organization can help in that regard. Support professional development, Gail mentioned that before, and training for teachers. One of the things that our teachers sadly have the unenviable position of engaging in is to try to teach critical thinking skills, not knowing whether people are going to be bringing their torches to Frankenstein's castle because God forbid they said something that is, remotely problematic, when they're just trying to get their kids to engage in critical thinking. Encourage collaboration between schools, courts, and community organizations to provide hands-on civic learning opportunities for students. There's a direct role that this organization can supply because we have the expertise to be able to make sure that our educators understand the best way to provide education. And that's not through a mandate, it's through assistance that we can provide. To promote the integration of civics education across all subject areas and grade levels. This is not a question of whether kids who are perhaps going to be headed to elite universities and colleges have that skill set. It's to make sure that everybody has that skill set. To develop and disseminate resources and best practices for effective civic education. Again, this organization can directly become involved in that through a whole host of activities by partnering, and I want to use that word partnering as opposed to mandating, partnering with our education community. Engage in public awareness campaigns to emphasize the importance of civics education for preserving democracy. I think people sadly don't really understand what's at stake, and we really need to help them in that regard. Collaborate with other state and national organizations to advocate civic education initiatives. As Gail said, we began this convocation by looking at civics from a national perspective, how are we doing as a nation, and then we went into a panel that looked at how we're doing in New York. And sadly, we don't get an A for that. We're far from it. Advocating for policies that prioritize civics education and address inequities to access quality civics education. We want to make sure that every student, however marginalized they may be, has an opportunity to get equitable opportunities to understand how to preserve this nation. And encourage the participation of lawyers and legal professionals in civics education efforts, such as guest speaking, mentoring, and volunteering. This organization could certainly set up itself to be a resource for school districts across the state, and to make sure that we don't just talk about what it's like to be a lawyer, but why law is important. Our students really need to understand that. And finally, regularly assess and evaluate the effectiveness of civics education initiatives. This is an objective to make sure that we don't just give ourselves a pat on the back, right? We decide whether we're making a difference, and if we're not, we need to retool and continue that. So the thought is, and Dick Lewis has been asking us to continue this journey for some time, because this is a journey, right? We didn't meet the destination, but I will tell you that in my career, being involved with Gail and Chris Riano, our third chair, was probably the most fulfilling professional experience of my entire life. That's a statement. It's a statement because I love this country, I love what we do, and I want us to do better. So I just want to say in closing, you should be very proud that this Bar Association has taken on the effort to make a difference. And I'm proud of all of you for that support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At its meeting yesterday, the executive committee voted to approve the report of the task force. Still some feedback over here.
Hi, I'm still Adrienne Koch, Chair, President of the New York County Lawyers Association. I'll be quick because I know it's been a long morning. I applaud the work of the task force, and I'm delighted that NYSBA is doing this work. I just want to highlight two additions to Section G of the recommendations Because if, like me, you printed or downloaded the report earlier in the week, they might not be in your copy. Section G now includes specific mention among the organizations with which this association should partner of the Second Circuit's Katzman Institute and local bar associations. And the reason why those things are really important is that the Katzman Institute is one of the most robust civics initiatives in the country, if not the most robust. And I want to tell you from NYCLA's experience, the courts, the Second Circuit and its constituent courts are really proud of it, and it's really important to them, and they are delighted to partner with bar associations. We've worked with them on projects before. They will be thrilled to hear from State Bar, and they're doing marvelous things. As far as local bar associations go, I can only speak directly from NYCLA's experience, but I know we're not alone. Being local, we are in the community, and we at NYCLA have partnered with some other organizations that are doing marvelous things in New York City. There are other local bar associations that are constituent members of this association. All of these organizations, the Katzman Institute, the local bar associations, you don't have to look far for them. We're right here. So, you know, call on us. We need to be partners in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to both of our speakers. What they did was incredible. And you can tell by the list of people who participated how much work it must have been just to organize what transpired. They're dealing with the Supreme Court of the United States is no small deal to get Justice Sotomayor. I sat here during this program, and I sat next to Chief Judge Wilson. And when this program ended, Chief Judge Wilson said, "I'm hoping that this is going to be an annual event." And the feedback that we got from the educators was very similar. It was really worthwhile, and I think it's one of the best things that this bar association has done. The other thing that I want to mention, just as a little story, is as we sat here and Justice Sotomayor was taking questions from the various students. And by the way, these students were not just the honor students. We wanted a cross section. And these students would come to this microphone and they would ask a Supreme Court justice questions. And I said to Judge Wilson, if I were that age and I was going to ask a question of a Supreme Court justice, I probably would have passed out or run away. And he said, me too. And these kids were incredible. They asked questions, and the justice was incredible as well. She was not condescending. She was fabulous. And that's true of this whole program. Panels were unbelievable, and I'm sure that we're going to be continuing it. So thank you very much for what I think was an incredible effort.
Yes, good morning. Helena Heath, out of state member, president appointee. I just had to emphasize how much my experience at this bar association has always been centered around the work of the youth. The education in the sense that you speak of, it just struck me. I couldn't help but rise to say that it's going to get at the heart of what we're hoping for with respect to better respect for our institutions, and really important, plant a seed for young people to become the next leaders and to have these kinds of foundations, these values. We already have a Youth Law Day, as you know, program, as many might know, that comes from the Diversity Committee and has been going on long term. I was involved with helping to get some of those programs at Albany Law when I lived here. And just the connection between giving, helping with a pipeline of getting more young people and students of color and women involved in the legal profession, but having this type of foundation as well, not just only what it means to become a lawyer, how you get to law school, what you got to do to be successful, but why it is that we will be leaders and can continue to be leaders as lawyers to make sure that our country is a stronger place. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Kim.
Hi, Kim Wolf-Price. I'm here for the Women in Law section as the HOD rep. And thank you to Judge Heath for setting me up on this one. I am a member of the Katzman Commission that was mentioned earlier, and I have been involved in the Youth Law Day program for a number of years. And I'm happy to report that the DEI committee has worked with Judge Bianco, who chairs that, on our Youth Law Day programs in the past. He came up to Syracuse for a program there, and he's coming back again next year. So there are ways, I think, that some of the other pieces of the bar are engaged in this civic conversation, and we'd be happy to fill you all in on that. And really, this is important and critical work, and thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that has anything to add to the discussion? No. Okay, we will proceed to take a vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. We're going to give the folks online a little more time than I've been giving them. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much for your work. Our next presenter is John H. Gross, the chair of the Committee on the Gala. It is an informational report. Is John presenting virtually?
I am. Not sure you can see me yet.
Whenever you're ready, John. Thank you.
I'm sure, as you all know, the gala will be held this year at the Plaza in New York City on January 16th, which is a Thursday night. The awards committee was successful in achieving acceptance by Justice Breyer to receive our gold medal, which those of you who have attended the event in the past know is awarded at the gala. Justice Breyer is just an outstanding former member of the United States Supreme Court, and has recently written a book on the rule of law, which I'm certain he will be discussing. He'll not be giving a formal presentation, but we're going to use the same format that we've used previously with Justice Kagan at the Museum of Natural History, which is a conversational setting between her and an academic that she's comfortable with. In terms of sales, we have sold 70% of the available seats at this point in time. That includes 18 tables. We're only a short 2.5 months away to the event. So those of you that are interested in participating by way of purchasing of a table or individual tickets, I suggest that you may want to consider in buying them to ensure your participation. So I do want to mention we have four premium seat tables available, 3 at 10,000 and one those are the Excelsior tables, and one at the Liberty table at 15,000. We would ask our friends in the very larger firms perhaps consider purchasing one of those tables as they have in the past. There also we have available dinner ads. Tickets will sell out. Those smaller firms in our association, we will accommodate if you want to mix with another small firm or 3 small firms. We'll assist you in cobbling together how payments are received and structuring those as well. We also, all of our brothers and sisters in other bar associations, many of whom are sitting in the House today, who are also strong participants in New York State Bar, NYCLA, City Bar, County Bars, Women's Bars, any of the other affinity bars, any of the many that exist in the state. We would urge you to consider perhaps taking a table, and again, we'll help organize that for you. I mentioned dinner ads are also available if you're interested in that, or if you just want to buy tickets for yourself and your partner, or you want to attend by yourself. It's a great event and very supportive of our association, which this year has now been in existence for 149 years. Information is available at nysba.org, our website, /presidential gala. I urge you to participate. It'll be a great event. It always is. And thanks for your time.
The blinding sunlight.
If you think it was hard for the people that came before me, just think about me right now. I'm the last on the agenda. The thing is, I know I stand between you and lunch, so think of this as the appetizer or an aperitif. Maybe that'd be more exciting for you. I am Cheryl Chambers, and I'm honored to address this House as the president of the New York Bar Foundation. As you know, since our founding in 1950, as the philanthropic arm of the New York State Bar Association, the mission of the foundation has been to support legal research and education, improve the administration of justice, and enhance the bar service to the public. Over the past 7 decades, the foundation has been strategically investing in ideas, individuals, dynamic organizations, and impactful institutions. These investments enable us to address justice issues and identify effective grant-making solutions across New York State, ultimately driving positive change. The foundation provides grants for a range of organizations. This afternoon, I'd like to review some key aspects of our grant review process. I see somebody yawning. How could you be yawning over this riveting report? The foundation evaluates grant applications through a structured process overseen by our grants review committee, co-chaired by June Castellano from Rochester and Lucia Wisison from Syracuse. This year, the review process will begin on December 9th and continue throughout the month of December. We have received 121 applications with requests for totaling nearly $2 million. The grants committee conducts a thorough evaluation of each application to ensure it aligns with the foundation's mission of enhancing the justice system and supporting legal services for underserved communities. Notably, 76% of the interviewees of the foundation's recent visioning study indicated that facilitating the delivery of civil services is the foundation's most critical objective. In our last grant cycle, 61% of the grants fell within that category. Of the applications received from the 2025 grant cycle, 64% fall within this critical category. The foundation is committed to investing our contributions with a clear intention to amplify the purpose of our collective philanthropy. The review process involves assessing applications based on criteria such as the potential impact of the proposed project, the applicant's capacity to execute the project, and align it with the foundation's strategic priorities. The Grant Review Committee has determined that the most pressing issues facing our legal system are eviction, preserving housing, access to quality education, economic security, and stability for persons made more vulnerable by discrimination, domestic violence, immigration, and veteran status. The board will determine the total amount of grant funds to be dispersed at its upcoming November meeting. In a typical year, the foundation will distribute a little over $500,000. I'd like it to be $1 million, but it's $500,000. After careful consideration, the Grants Committee makes funding recommendations to the foundation's board of directors, which makes the final decision on grant awards at its January meeting. As we approach the 75th anniversary of the foundation, we are thrilled to celebrate the remarkable work of the foundation and those who have exemplified value-based leadership and made significant contributions to the foundation. In honor of this milestone, the foundation has launched the Leadership Laureate Series that will feature individuals who have demonstrated exceptional leadership and achievements and will help us to understand the importance of philanthropy. This series will feature events across various judicial districts in New York State, showcasing these outstanding individuals within their local communities, and will engage in inquisitive discussions about how the foundation's investments in individuals, nonprofits, and innovative ideas advance justice. The inaugural event was a celebratory reception co-chaired by Catherine Christian and Raymond Dowd, and it was held in New York City on October 29th. We are grateful to Jonathan Bartholomew Miller for graciously sponsoring the event and providing a wonderful venue for this special occasion. During the reception, we celebrated the appointment of the Honorable Adam Silvera as the new Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York City Courts, and recognized past President Stephen Younger for his outstanding leadership and invaluable contributions to the New York Bar Foundation. The unique event provided guests with an opportunity to personally meet DCAJ Adam Silvera and express their gratitude to Stephen Younger, who received the inaugural Force for Justice Award. It was also an occasion to learn more about the foundation's mission and ongoing efforts. We highlighted one of our grantee partners, Family Legal Care, whose CEO, Kathy Kramer, explained how our grants transformed their ability to expand pro bono services and enhance its family court navigation technology. Now I'd like to give you, excuse me, provide you with a brief update on our campaign. In October of 2023, the foundation launched a comprehensive campaign raising funds to increase our grants program, sustain our mission, and expand our scholarship and fellowship program. The campaign is led by 23 individuals, next slide, listed on this slide, who are providing strategic guidance to the overall campaign and who also oversee our campaign subcommittees. I am grateful for their leadership and commitment to the foundation's vision. We're still holding a place for you, Michael McNamara. We will be recruiting a few more members for our subcommittees over the next month or so. The campaign has been very successful thus far. I'm pleased to share that we have secured pledges for over 36% of our goal. Next slide. Because of the generosity of 80 donors. Not only that, 75% of our donors have made their largest financial commitment to the foundation to date, and our average leadership gift is almost $123,000. Additionally, 5 donors have made bequest intentions, and we have established 2 new restricted funds. Next slide. You are very important, a very important part of our path forward. You can help us by attending our events to learn more about the foundation and its impact, thinking about how you or your firm can become involved, meeting foundation leaders, staff, our fellows, and volunteers to learn more about the foundation and our campaign. Now, that's all for now. I'll be back in January with more news about the foundation. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Judge. Next, we have administrative items. There's just two that I'd like to address before we adjourn. The membership model, about which you've heard so much, has been opened with new membership available. I encourage you to make your plans and renew your membership if you've not already done so. And please encourage your colleagues to renew or join. Next, I'd like to encourage you again to review the schedule for the January 2025 annual meeting. It is available on the website under events calendar. Register for the programming that you'd like as soon as you can, and encourage your colleagues to do that as well. The next meeting of the House. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Yes, past president.
Yeah, Mark Alcott, resident curmudgeon. Give me a brief moment, please. I hope we will not abandon the proud, wonderful name of our organization, the New York State Bar Association, and substitute the mindless and unintelligible acronym NISBA, which no one outside this room understands. You know, I'm very active in the American Bar Association, the ABA. No one calls it ABA, right? I'm a proud citizen of the United States of America, the USA. No one calls it USA. And I am an arbitrator. I get a lot of referrals from the American Arbitration Association, the AAA. I never say except when I'm in the doctor's office. He's inspecting my throat. So please, thank you.
Thank you. The next meeting of the House of Delegates will be Friday, January 17, 2024 at the New York Hilton Midtown, and also via Zoom. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Any opposed? We'll gotta wait for the online people. Thank you very much for your time. I want to also just give a shout out to John Rogers, who assisted with the video tributes that you heard today with regard to Maryann Saccomando Freedman. Thank you.